Hey everybody, Mr. Jones here. Let me know if looks and sounds okay. We started at 360p this morning for some reason. Fun technical issues here at Easy Allies for Cup of Jones. Thank you, looking sharp. As you might notice, I got a second microphone here. I'm going to be joined very shortly by Mr. Daniel Bloodworth. It is raining currently in Southern California. Can't hear me. Can hear. Okay, so I can hear you. Alrighty then. Yeah, I'm still catching up on sleep from staying up until 5 in the morning to get $200 so that I could start a posse in Red Dead Online, which we played last Tuesday night for a couple hours, pushing back Jackbox 5 to the following Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday. And our group streams have been all over the place. Just apologies for changing schedules. People got confused and people were frustrated that we didn't do Jackbox last Tuesday. And but we will get to it. Yeah, invisible guest right now. I have this WWE chair as the guest for the time being, but that will be filled with Daniel Bloodworth. Hopefully, if he drives safe. Yeah, I will be playing a lot more Red Dead. Apologies, a lot of people have been like trying to friend me on PSN, and my settings are currently not set to like accept friends because I was reviewing it. We have a club on the social club, there's blood, called Easy Allies Official, and it's up there. You can, like, it's invite only, so I haven't sent out those invites, but I did put up a post saying, hey, join the club, join the posse. And so if you're on PlayStation and you would like to join me in Red Dead, you can. Mr. Daniel Bloodworth, everybody.
Hello.
Did I get the camera? You fit on camera. I did it.
Yay.
I'll pull back the camera just enough. Feel free to get yourself some water. Do you have a nice...
Oh, yeah.
Whatever, if you need a beverage, it's gonna be a long show. We got a lot of questions. We got questions for 2 weeks. No editorial this week. We got Blood's editorially enough. Just tons of questions. So I'm gonna barrel through them. And actually, I gotta leave because you got Blood Pact at 1 o'clock, and at 1:30, I'm gonna meet our real estate agent.
Yeah.
To go through more paperwork. Yay, paperwork!
Oh boy.
It's fun looking at things and just like,
I haven't even finished. I got a third of the way through the last batch of paperwork.
And I love getting the random like blood text or message through Slack where he's just like, hey, line 6.8, like, that's fun. Little it's a fun little thing we didn't realize before. Some people in Twitch chat saying they can't click the Patreon link. All right. Check the Patreon link.
But then can't click the Patreon link. What?
See, welcome to Cup of Jones, bud.
I'm usually in the chat.
Always worth a double check, though. So yeah, Jackbox will be next Tuesday. We're also down a bunch of people, and we'll have a bunch of people back. Fancy 15 premiered.
Yeah.
Which you were not a part of, but 6 of us met and played games, the first 15 minutes of them. Each episode is going by individually every Monday at 10 a.m. and covers a different ally. And I was number 2. I played, I don't even remember the name of it, some game with colors in it. I was not very impressed. But Ian will be in the next episode, either the episode that he went up this week.
Weird.
Yeah. Oh, for specifically, or wait, what? No. I think he means on Twitch. All right, whatever. You figure that out. We did a group stream rerun, which
it's weird. It's showing me like people aren't able to get into us. This is weird.
Because I stopped and restarted.
Oh, maybe.
And maybe it started another. Well, that would
maybe
make
it's
sense.
A new link.
Why would it send out a new link though? That's so weird.
Yeah, maybe see if you have a current link.
Sure.
So you can swap out in that Patreon post.
Can I do that?
How did you get here, chat?
Well, they've been here the whole time, I guess. That's really strange though. I checked the settings, it doesn't give me a link.
Right, you have to do it from the YouTube backend. Because, yeah, it was just a minute 30 of the starting tune.
Yeah. So strange. Okay.
Before the restart.
Okay. think I've started and stopped Cup of Jones before, so that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it usually is not an issue to if you just do it really quick.
Okay. Yeah, tell them to refresh that post. That should do it. Very strange. There's no easy way to do Cup of Jones. It's kind of like we're proving that we are solvent by like just doing Cup of Jones. It's like just the fact that we're live and we're here and people can hear us. They're just like, all right, that's all the business update I needed, just to know that you're still there. The studio's still around. Today is November 29th, 2018. So we do have an update.
I should probably make sure it works myself, huh? That would be a good idea.
Please do. But we did a rerun of the group stream. That's something we're going to experiment with, and actually something that I want to
I'm seeing myself
discuss.
Looking at my phone, so that's good.
Excellent. Something I want to discuss. Having our Twitch channel be more of an ongoing network. So there's just more opportunities to catch up on stuff that we're doing, possibly shows. We talked about this a little bit on Cup of Jones in the past. And that got a really good reaction. Special thanks to Kristen, who was the one that actually pulled the trigger on rerunning that, and will possibly take the rest of that responsibility to do that in the future. And so, yeah, just got to find the right people that can maybe rebroadcast their shows or rebroadcast specific streams, as long as you realize what they are. And of course, you know, there's new technology coming to Twitch and new stuff rolling out that I think makes sense and kind of allows content creators like us to be able to have that be a network, have that be someplace where you're like, this is a destination that I like to be, even when nothing is being broadcast, even when they're not even like hosting another channel or something. It's just fun to be in chat. And so we want to give you more opportunities to
looks like we got new people
to watch our stuff.
Nice. Dragon Azul is here.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah, gotta note that one. Gotta test that one in the future. Gotta keep that one in the brain. We mentioned there's a lot of studio dump paperwork. You'll get updated as soon as possible. I feel good. I'm positive. I'll leave it on that. Mm-hmm. And the showcase post is up for the community showcase. I put that up last night, so you can go submit that. I will be doing that. Boy, that's going to be a day. I'm doing Cup of Jones, and then the showcase, and the Game Awards is that night. That's next Thursday.
And it's my birthday.
So it's December 6th. Yay!
Oh, that's right. That's a Thursday. Okay.
It's going to be a big deal. It's 3 days after my dad's birthday.
We got a morning thing that we're trying to decide on whether to go and who should go. But if you're doing Cup of Jones, that can't be you.
Right.
Ben is on the fence. Maybe I'll go.
I'm definitely gonna go.
I mean to the morning thing.
Oh yeah. No. And tons of reviews incoming. Battlefield is like almost done. I did pickups last night.
Yeah, Battlefield needs to be approved at this point.
Okay.
Don uploaded
very
it.
Close.
I need to watch it. Huber needs to watch it, but Huber is moving today, so he may not be able to watch it till late.
And you're still like unpacking stuff. I cut like 40% of Pokemon, and then last night at like 11:30 it started to rain, and we got a brownout just for like a second, and it knocked my TV out that I edit on, and I hadn't done any of the work on Cup of Jones yet, and I was so tired after Red Dead on Monday night going into Tuesday, so I'm like, all right, I can resize this so I can edit it just on my laptop screen, but like I'm just gonna do Cup of Jones and then we'll see how awake I am after that. And I finished that like around 1 o'clock, and I was like, I gotta go to bed. And so even like going to bed at 1 and not getting up until like 8:45, like I'm still super beat. I'm just really tired. Right. So my bad for not getting Pokemon out, but we got a great Let's Go script from Damiani, and there's another Fallout. Ben's still almost done.
I don't know where he's at in it.
Think of Ben in this time of need. Play. That's all I got up for an intro. We got lots of
Darksiders
questions.
I think Brad finished, and so he's just writing at this point.
And hopefully I'll get started on Just Cause soon.
Yeah. It sounds like not many people have gotten it yet.
But it launches next week, so that'll be next week. Cool. And there's a lot of other points that I didn't necessarily get to, but people ask questions about them, so let's get into it. Brandon Kagan, I was excited to hear about the second offer on the studio you put down. And when you said waiting for the other shoe to drop, a thought occurred to me that I don't believe you've covered. I hope the following never happens, but better to ask before it might. What backup plan does EZA have in place in the event the studio is lost after being in place for a length of time for whatever reason? Would you transition back to the garage? No. Or are there other contingencies? Fingers are crossed super hard that you all get the place, and I'm hoping for excellent news much sooner rather than later. The thing about the studio is we want to move when it's like the best thing we can get, when it makes the most sense, because it's going to be a weird transition. It's going to be an investment. There's going to be a lot of difficulties associated with the studio, but they're totally worth it if we get the kind of space that we want. And if we get this space, it'll definitely be that. If that space doesn't work out, if it burns down, if we, just drop like 20K, you giggle, you jest. Not today because it's raining, but if anything happens and we can't be in that space anymore, there are all sorts of options of things we could do. We could rent space at the YouTube space. We've talked to them a lot about using that. There's all sorts of production spaces that I know that other people work at. One of the places that we looked at that was almost as good as this, we really thought of, is owned by another YouTuber, and we would be sharing the space with them. And that was a totally viable option. That sounded great because it was like, wow, that can maybe open up a lot of options working with that property and with that channel, or not, and just finding our own space and any issues that they have in trying to improve the production space. We could also contribute, so we could go in halvesies on improvements to the whole space. Like, there's all sorts of possibilities. It's just none of those are like perfect. It's like, yeah, we could do that, but if we could get our own space, that would be amazing because we could really do whatever we want to do. So when you say contingencies, like, I can think of 10 right off the top of my head of like places we could be to just do what we do. It would not be great. It would be less fortunate than the situation that we're currently trying to put together.
But are they specifically talking about losing in terms of us being significantly below 50K? Is that what they mean by losing?
I have a note not to sip into the mic, so I gotta step away when I do that. I think that I think absolute worst case scenario, you would just see more of us. The two of you just moved. Like, your new area is much more stream capable. I think like we'd have to carry the burden on a lot of us doing our own stuff at home. Like possibly like Frame Trap started in Ben's apartment, and I know it's not his favorite thing to do, but I think we would still try to find some kind of an outside space. It's just a question of like how big that would be and what we'd be able to do there. Because keep in mind, that's the other thing too. When we're looking for a studio right now, we're looking for 2 rooms. We could save a ton of money if we just had like a small studio, like a 1-room space, something this size. So even below 50K, we'd be able to do that. But but you bring up a good point that I love to reiterate, which is it's not just a studio. It's not just different walls. It's not just the fact that I can like drive somewhere else and people aren't coming over to my house. Like, this is a major fundamental shift in like a lot of things that are going to happen at Easy Allies, the way that we do things. I can't wait to put together my it's not going to be like a flip chart for like a family where it's just like, little Daniel Bloodworth's doing laundry this week, but like a list together where it's like, here's all the stuff that I've just done because it's my house and whatever, but like now it's time for Michael Huber to clean the bathroom. That'll be good times. VG Junkie, do you think a transition to the 3-2-1 point voting system like Hall of Grades can be implemented for GOATys? I think this last year's were based on majority vote, but picking one with the most points out of everybody's top 3 might work out a bit better than some of the head-to-head debates that happened last time. They're a whole other question, but I want to address that really quickly. I think it would be the same. I really thought about it when I read this question last night. I'm like, I still think the same games would have won, because if you obviously got to take away where in Call of Greats you can't vote for your own thing, where like doesn't make sense for GOATys. Like, you've got it. That's the whole point. You're voting for the game because it's not your game. It's like it's the game that I think is most qualified. And so, I mean, if I think about the people last year that had debates, or the people that were on one side or the other, they would just put their 3 vote as their vote. Like, I don't know. Like, you're still gonna have like I hesitate to call them games, but like, you're still gonna have a little bit of sneakiness. I know Kyle has contested to this because he's like, when I realize what game is not going to win, I'm still going to put my dog in the race that I want to win, even though it's not like technically my GOATY. So like, I'm not going to vote for something I know is not going to win, and then my vote doesn't matter because it's not really lumped into like the big contenders. And so he's like, I think technically, long story short, he thought Odyssey was like technically his game of the year, but he voted for Zelda because he's like, I want Zelda. I think Zelda's better than Persona, so I'm going to vote for Zelda for game of the year, even though deep down, Odyssey's my game of the year. So I think at the end of the day, people vote for that thing that they want, to win GOTY, and I don't necessarily think separating it by pointing system. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it comes down to a process of elimination too. We've only broadcasted our deliberations once,
right?
And so just because
we'll definitely be better
that's
at it next
the way
year.
Things went down doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to be the way things went down. It's really, it's just about like whatever method works to get us in there, to get us to that mindset, and so if it looks like it comes down to 2 games, then all right, you people who wanted to vote for a third game, don't vote for the third game, just vote between these two, you know. So one way or another, it really ends up that way.
I like the rawness of just raise your hand, it's one vote, Are you in or are you out? And furthermore, regarding the Defy thing, even if GT had kept trucking, what would have happened to Defy? What would have happened when Defy eventually shut down? You'd have to find another home and maybe wind up in the same situation you're in now anyway. Maybe you'd wind up with another media company, but I imagine that it'd be less personally rewarding. Win-win, right? Like, things worked out great.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
The scenario, I don't know. Like, some things definitely would have gone down differently. For one, I don't know that the IGN thing would have happened. Game trailers might not be preserved.
Oh no, of course. Yeah. That's an excellent point.
Fran is not there now.
And not to be super selfish, but when we were let go, all the attention was on us. We got the headline. Like you would go to other places and it would be about game trailers, where it's like Defy shutting down, Clever and, Screen Junkies is a fandom now, but which
Smosh is a huge one.
Smosh, all that's kind of like an umbrella underneath it. So you have these different, communities that are talking about it and
PewDiePie was
Warp
talking about Smosh thing,
yeah. So it was nice getting the spotlight on us. No, things worked out great. Megan Leinart, with the recent news that Sony isn't going to attend E3 in 2019, does this change your E3 plans at all? If not, would just love to know your feelings on it and what this means for Sony going forward. You didn't talk about this in the podcast, so maybe you can weigh in. We talked about this a lot.
Does,
on the podcast,
but it doesn't in a weird. It's like. Yeah, we won't be scheduling conference. We won't be scheduling.
We'll be going to bed earlier on Monday night, which is great.
With them. But otherwise, everything else is the same. There's still,
I'll miss that media room.
50 more appointments to do. So.
Sony's media room is delicious.
Yeah, it is really nice.
It's really nice to film. Specifically, like Dreams and Spider-Man were just 2 games at last E3 that I'm like, I just want to keep coming back to this and just watch people playing it. And so it was fun. Like, I got a free hour. I'm just going to run over to their media room. Tyson Wynn. Before Easy Allies launched, you released the Allies Assemble video, a story about your lack of an outlet for talking about game news and gradual descent into madness. After receiving a message from Lightning, you contacted the others while also giving a fun short narrative of what the other allies were doing in the absence of GT. I think a similar video should be created for when the allies get a studio and would be a fun way to commemorate the next step for Easy Allies. A shorter video like Allies Assemble is easily shareable and was how I found out about Easy Allies following the end of game trailers. And those scenes with each ally are a genuinely fun way to introduce yourself to a new person. I think that's a terrible idea. I don't like it. I don't like it.
I'm curious.
Speaking of Lightning, Lightning struck with that video, and there's just no way to recreate that.
I'm curious if they've seen the more recent promo, which is somewhat outdated at this point.
All our promos are outdated. Yeah, it's like I got to a point this year where I kept thinking how can we repackage and resell the Easy Allies Plays channel? How can we do the promo for Easy Allies? And it's like, God, now that we're in the studio hunt, it's like, let's just move everything, redo everything, and then we'll take pictures of ourselves and be like, this is us. Toasty Soul, after watching the latest Trailer Jones where you watched the Smash Ultimate World of Light trailer, I made the mistake of venturing into the comments. Here I found a few Smash fans complaining that the panel did not notice the small intricate details of the trailer and chastising Ian over calling Shulk Pit. You following up with Shulk being from Fire Emblem and then Huber correcting that he's from Xenoblade. I understand that you cannot have encyclopedic knowledge of every single game, but it seems some expected from you, citing that it's your quote unquote your jobs. While this can be another topic all on its own, my question is this: would you consider adding a kind of disclaimer or description at the top of each Trailer Jones explaining what it is? I feel as though many first-time viewers do not understand that it is not about breaking down the small details and Easter eggs of a trailer. Rather, it's about analyzing and critiquing the trailer as a piece of art itself. Super quick answer. Yeah, I should. I think this comes in a part, like we want to get comfortable with every show that we do, and Trailer Jones is like changed in format. It, like, we did a couple episodes and it went away and it came back, and so I'm still kind of figuring out like what the best way to do it is. I did recommendations at the end of one episode, and then I haven't done that since. So like when you get cozy with the show, you start kind of falling into weird habits, and like that's definitely one of them that like I didn't bring that up. I keep thinking about the podcast. Thought about a funny thing about the podcast we should probably mention, that there's more of us.
Oh.
You know what I mean? We probably should. Like when he says patreon.com, like you should be like, hey, follow us at patreon.com. There's 4 other people that are in our group that you can see. So if you didn't like us, you know, like there may be a chance that like we'll cycle in some new people in later episodes, or it just encourages you to like check out another episode and you'll meet other people that are involved with these allies. But yeah, a lot of things we take for granted because we're used to us. Christopher Frederick wanted to say that I really appreciate your transparency. Stoked to have you here for this. Not just with Cup of Jones, but with making your Patreon dollars public.
Okay.
It's always bothered me when people hide how much they're getting, especially since a Patreon pledge feels like an investment in the person or people we're giving a few dollars to. Was it a group decision to keep it public? Would you ever make it private in the future? And if so, why? It wasn't a group denial, I guess. Like we didn't really think about it that much.
Yeah, because it wasn't an option when we started. And that was a more recent.
And then when it came up, everyone just kind of shrugged. Like no one was like, I can't think of a. No one said I can think of a reason why.
Right.
We would want to hide that.
I think for a lot of creators, that's not what they're necessarily focused on. Like that's not how their goals are set up.
Right.
I think we're kind of a different case in the sense that like we keep setting these higher tier goals, and I don't think a lot of people necessarily look at it that way.
Right.
And so for them, growing their Patreon is really about getting more people in, and then others. Well, I want to say Kind of Funny has some goal that, or not goal, but tier that's like tens of thousands of dollars. And so that just blows the whole concept completely out of the water. Like 1 month you're, at 20,000 and then you're at 40, and then you go back down to 20. So it doesn't really, it's not that useful, if you have something going on like that.
I think one of the main things about how I view us compared to a lot of like our colleagues is at the end of the day, when you watch the majority of our content, it's us sitting around talking. So like you have to like us or be patient in listening to us, or you're really not going to be into this enterprise. There's just not a lot for you here if you don't enjoy our discourse or the things that we bring up or the shows that we produce. And it's really only things like Huber's Game Show, which I didn't mention that at the beginning, but we did a test for it yesterday, and it's so much fun.
Oh, cool!
I was a contestant on it, and it is a blast. Like it's really, really fun, and it's just great. I just don't want to give you too many details, but they're putting that video together. They shot it all yesterday, and half of it is us, breaking the game basically and going through it, and the other half is Ian and Huber explaining how it works and like what you don't see and what parts there were, like various props and costumes and set pieces and stuff. Yeah, I had a blast. There's a lot of strategy involved, and it's really fun. Anyway. That and Box Peak and like Busted Trifecta, maybe our concerts, like every now and then, reviews certainly, like, and reactions, like there are things that we do that I don't think you really need to know us to absorb. You can jump in and just watch 5 seconds of it and be like, okay, that's fun, and then move on. Whereas like the vast majority of stuff that we do is very dependent on us as personalities. And so when we sell ourselves, like I don't really try to sell ourselves as like a one-stop shop where it's just like, get all your media entertainment here. It's like, no, watch us first and then decide if you're interested. And so when you have the number up front and you have this clear path of growth, then you like listen to a podcast, find a quote that we said, a review that you liked, then you learn about us and you're either like, well, I don't like those guys, or I want to learn more. Then you find the Patreon, then you see what number we're at, then you see where we want to go, and then it just seems like a much more organic like introduction to Easy Allies as opposed to like sign up now because we're awesome. It's like, well, decide that first, and then because I don't want to oversell people on the stuff that we do. Garrett Kuenzi, if IGN came to you guys and offered to sell the Game Trailers name, IP, and YouTube channel at a price you could afford, would you guys buy it, and would you go back to that IP with a larger YouTube subscriber base or stay Easy Allies? Easy Allies for life, bro.
Yeah. I think just the nature of what that channel is now would be very difficult to maintain.
It's so confusing, man. How would we message that? Can you imagine how like unexcited people would be? You know what I mean? Like what a weird announcement. Like we're back, and like what? You were doing the thing. Like, no, but we have this logo now. And like, okay. You know, Huber Syndrome's called Huber Hype now. Like, cool.
Yeah,
So,
well,
the numbers aren't
and
gonna go up or
two,
anything.
I
Like,
mean, we've
I
joked
would love
around a
those
lot
YouTube
about that,
subs,
but I
but-
kind of don't think anyone really cares about names.
yeah.
Like, we
And-
probably could have used those names and it would have been fine.
And personally, just selfishly, I love, I created game trailers with my buddies from high school. That thing is now up to 700 plus. And then I created with my, like 15 year later friends, created this other media thing that's now up to almost 200,000. So I like them being separate things. It's like I like putting that game trailers boat out to sea and just like, I'll see it when it comes into port someplace else.
Talking about boats, the name itself was an anchor in many ways.
Yeah.
Even hiring people, hiring me, I thought you guys made trailers.
I'll meditate on that a lot of just like, what could we have called ourselves? Like, what's a name? Because like, I think Game Trailers is still smart. Like in 2002, I think it was a smart idea to buy GameTrailers.com. But like around 04, 05, when YouTube really started to pick up, it's like we should have made a channel. Like we should have made something that had nothing to do with the Game Trailers business. Keep that pure aggregation. And then when we do reviews and everything, like make that something that the GameTrailers.com site links to is like, hey, go there for all of our cool original content. But like should have made a Smosh or something else. But I'm like, the hell would that have been called?
I mean,
wouldn't have been called Easy Allies because we were not.
It's just a whatever.
We were a bunch of greedy college grads. We were not easy allies at all in 2002. Nothing easy about what we were doing. Renee Klugt, I have to ask about Kyle's show again, just to clarify for me at least. This good transition from talking about Game Trailers IP. Final Bossman was, like you said, a very well-produced show, but the thing that kept me coming back was Kyle's passion and unique views on video gaming in the industry and so on. So for me at least, a format like Bossman at Home would fit perfectly fine too. It's not about polish, it's about Kyle. Good to know. And I know, and Kyle knows that. Two major things are one, it's not like just the camera and the lights and stuff. It's writing the segment. It's like he writes that stuff ahead of time. And so it's just a struggle that Huber's had with Syndrome where like he'll have some weeks like, what am I going to talk about? And it's like, it's not just that like, oh, you talk about Fallout 76 being bad, or you talk about, microtransactions. It's so obvious. Everyone in the industry is talking about this. But if you don't have an interesting take, or you're like, I'm just not inspired to like tell you what I think about it, then it can be really difficult. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's one of the things too. I mean, people refer to the first 15 as a show. The first 15 was not a show. The first 15 is when Bossman took his episode and threw it in the trash and lit it on fire and was like, okay, now what is happening? What's happening this week? And then that's the first 15.
And that wasn't just a concept. That's like he wrote it out, and like sometimes it'd even like sit down to record something and be like, this sucks. I'm not happy with it. And the other thing too is it's not about polish. It's about Kyle. It's not about fan expectations. It's about Kyle. Like if Kyle just doesn't want to do it, it's like that would be a bad show. You don't want Kyle at a desk not having fun. And he had a lot of fun when he was working at that at Game Trailers, and it'd be a different case now. Kurubu, when the studio gets locked down, here's hoping. Has there been any discussion on how to handle that set development and tour with your patrons? Any insight into how you all decide to dress up your space? Or will it remain shrouded in mystery until the day you start up that big day one stream? I'm sure you're not looking for patron feedback on how best to design any corner of your space, but I'm definitely interested to see and hear about the entire journey and decision-making process from you and the allies right up until the studio is just commonplace. We're going to have a big meeting on Friday to talk about December. We're going to talk about a little bit this more in detail with the allies of just kind of like, how should we plan this out? Should that studio get locked down? Let's say we get it, and where we move in December, like if we wanted to roll out programming in January, how would that look? Which seems like a likely timeline that like, even if we get the studio like now, even if I have an email in my inbox that I haven't checked yet, which we still have paperwork to figure out, so that would be very unlikely. But I think we wouldn't actually start rolling stuff out until January because the holidays are coming up. And how I imagine it, and this is just me speaking personally, you can weigh in on this, but I want to hear what the rest of the allies think, is updates, cryptic updates while we're actually moving in. And then there is like mystery, I guess. Hopefully there's mystery. Hopefully people care. And then you do the big blowout. So when you actually see the set, that's the first time you've ever seen it. When you see the streaming set, that's the first time you've ever seen that. And then after that, here's all this stuff we've been recording for the last 3-4 weeks. Here's how all this came together. And then you watch all of that after the fact. But yeah, I think if you see too much of that.
Wait, we kind of lost people a little bit.
Uh-oh.
May want to restart the answer to that in a second.
Uh-oh. Oh my God.
YouTube, why?
Is it dropping frames? No,
No, it's not. It's not on our end.
All right. Look back at what Kind of Funny did. It was really cool. Okay. So yeah, we're just talking about how we're going to roll out the new stuff in the studio. I would like to be as cryptic as we can. I definitely want to show us moving stuff and fun little moments, but they're all going to kind of be pointing at parts of the studio that are boring, and then save the big fun bits, the the control room and the desk set, the streaming set.
Yeah,
and then do a big behind the scenes thing that we had been producing after we do the big reveal.
Exactly.
Okay. Christopher Moreland, I wanted to thank you guys for releasing the audio version of your latest episode of Trailer Jones. I frequently only have time to consume EZA content when I'm driving to or from work, so I really appreciate any time if your content is released in a downloadable audio format. How time intensive is it to release audio versions? Can we expect more content to be released this way? How large is your listener-only audience? The last one is the only one I don't know. I know Kyle could probably answer that for the podcast, but
yeah, it's I think SoundCloud has stats. They might even be public if you go to the SoundCloud page. I don't know.
I don't track that kind of stuff for Cup of Jones or for Trailer Jones, because they're
for me the stuff that's on Patreon we probably can't track very well.
Right.
Those uploads.
Yeah. I think every now and then, like every month or so, we do a quick check-in on everything that we're doing, having audio versions. Obviously, it's up to the show producers to decide whether that's something that they want to do. It's not super time intensive. It's remember intensive. It's just something I just forget to do sometimes.
It's an extra task on the list.
Because on Cup of Jones, it takes a while for it to process. A lot of times I do Cup of Jones and then leave, like case in point today, you're streaming, and other shoots happen sometimes on Thursdays. So I'll do the audio version for Cup of Jones that night. Sometimes I forget because I'm a dummy. Jeffrey Tessar, you are always on the left side of the table on podcasts and Fiasco, etc. Is there a secret to this preference, like I'm closer to the house, or is this my better side, or my rump prefers this positioning? Are your superpowers of Jolly Entertainment channeled from that side of the garage? The allies must know, Jones. No, it's a definite conscious decision. I think this is my better side. I tend to part the big wave off to the left and then the little wave off to the right. And so you got like the part kind of here. It's just kind of like where the part naturally rests. When you go this side, it's just like a lot of hair. So this side, there's like a little bit more character to it. And like I did a lot of theater and a lot of film. So like, yes, I do know my good side. I also like being at a corner. So I think it also worked for the podcast. I think it started with the podcast because Kyle's on that side, I'm on the other side, the two guests that alternate are in the middle. And it's also just nice because when I'm here, and I combine, man, remember the original podcast days when we had the arms and you're just like, I remember like being in the middle for one shoot and I was like, oh, this sucks. Like, I'm so glad I'm on the side. It's really easy to look at everybody and still have mic control. Whereas like when you're in the front here, you kind of got to dodge the mic to make sure people can see you. So it's just, and it, you put your shoulder up. It's just like, I'm like Norm from Cheers. I'm just right there at the end. Greg Kettering, apologies to the viewers in advance for a higher tier reward question. I feel bad. Greg Kettering wants this, and I just don't see this happening.
Oh, okay.
Brandon, and I love how he's like, just give Blood more work. Brandon, one of my favorite rewards each month is the digital fan mail. However, I'm wondering if it would be possible to make a tweak to it to make it even better. The way I understand how it works now is the 100 plus people eligible get divided up among the allies, and each sends out something to that subset. So each month, you're never sure which ally sends you something. Is there any way it could be reworked for each person gets something from each ally? Given the scale of sending those out, they're not individually written to begin with, and it enhanced their tier award even more as people could then get a consistent monthly check-in with each ally. I don't think it would add more work logistically, as Blood or someone could create the unified mail distro and send it out to all the other allies to use for that month. It's a piece of cake, man. You just take all of the things that we produce individually, gather them all, make sure we do them all, send them all out at the same time, and just put a big email list in there.
Yeah, thankfully I don't do that. I mean, the alternative would be everybody sending everything, but that would also be weird, right? Because you would just get like this flood of Easy Allies emails.
Right.
Unfortunately, we haven't looked into any kind of like actual email system because those names do change a bit month to month.
Right.
So it is really us just like
you have to
copying a
plugging
email
in all
from
those
a
names.
list.
It's the same with patron credits. Oh, which I totally forgot in the last podcast. Apologies. But I will read them the next week.
I think there's some fun in not knowing what you're going to get or what kind of thing you're going to get.
Yeah.
We all have different takes on it. I know one time I think I was typing up a fan mail around the other allies or something, and like Don saw it and he's like, whoa, that's really long. And I'm like, it is?
I also I also admittedly don't really know what everybody does. Like,
right.
I don't, some
once in a while Ian will give
do
a
weird
hint.
things.
He'll be like, hey, I made this for the fan mail, check it out.
I, like, I record mine, so I just do a little, I hop in the booth and read a little something. But Ulf himself, are you guys, so yeah, and the other thing too is when so much of our work and so much of our schedule and our to-do list is value-based, so it's just like, what are we getting for this work that I'm doing? What is the Patreon getting from this content that I'm producing? And so when a suggestion comes in, even if it's a great idea, but it's just like, maybe just a little more value onto a thing, nothing in return, just a little, you're like, like, I don't necessarily think a bunch of people jump to the fan mail tier if we had done that. Ulf himself, are you guys planning on doing any more charity streams in the near future? I would love to. We had talked again about, and I know we've always just kind of batted at this, but like we talked about doing Extra Life, and it was like the worst week. Everyone was sick. You were out. Like I think that's when you moved. It was like the day. It was just like we had nobody. Like it was like my anniversary. And it was like, and I think it's that day every year. It's just a really like the beginning of November is.
It's a brutal time. Period.
Yeah, it's a brutal time to do it. So we just have not solved that mystery, and I really thought we were going to do it this year. I kept bringing it up, and then it just like it kind of fell to pieces.
I really liked when we did ours and the timing of it, and I think that's saying
the game day stream. Yeah, I'd love to. It's fun to when the industry all gets involved with one specific charity at the same time. It'd also be fun to just out of nowhere like do our own specific stream and shine the light on something specifically. The game day stream was a lot of fun. Perhaps this time you could partner with St. Jude. A children's hospital that does a lot of work with streamers and other charities because their treatments are free. I'm definitely familiar with them. I used to do a lot of volunteering for Children's Hospital, which I would go to a horse show that my parents would be involved in. So I would go change lifts for like horse jumping for the kids. And they'd raise a couple million every year. Kola Ina, what do you think about Ben's self-written, edited, and narrated Don't Skip? Narrated. On the podcast, he asked for feedback from the community, and I was curious what you thought. I love it. Reminded me of the the type of stuff, he produced I read the first Don't Skip for the first concert that we did, but I love the video about demo discs that he produced for the second. I've long been in favor of him having a if Easy Allies wasn't a thing, and like Ben had his own channel and would like make these kind of like blog posts where you would like throw gameplay up and talk over stuff, I would definitely subscribe. I would definitely listen to that. I'm excited for that for many reasons. I thought it was really great. I love that I love that he's just experimenting. Doesn't matter what kind of changes he does, but I love that he does a lot of different tests with Don't Skip with the format. And I love that he is interested and inspired to put more of himself in those videos because as somebody who does, writes the scripts and voiceover and edits and all that stuff, it's like, it's a lot of work to put all of that together. And it just takes like, it's tough because people ask me for like, narration advice or like voiceover advice. And I'm just like, I've been doing this for a long time. So that's kind of part of it. Like,
right.
If you use the Brandon Jones method, just do it for 10 years. And so like the more Ben does that, I know he's just going to get better and better at it. So Dre Oroseo, still miss the jazz, and I feel it's finally time to tell you how to pronounce my last name. It's pronounced Oroseo. Got it. Maybe. Oroseo. Oroseo. What potential revenue streams have you identified as backup plans? And will EZA ever get a hardware or company sponsor for ads despite the ones in the podcast? We got Trust Gaming.
Yeah.
Trust Gaming now sponsors our group stream. So, we're starting to dabble with that. And we've had some sponsors that have come and gone in the past that have kind of been outside of the regular Patreon paradigm.
There's part of me that always finds some of this humorous, the idea that advertising would be more stable as we see YouTube like bleeding away.
Right.
And one of the terms people use is diversifying like where our income comes from.
Right.
And I'm like, what's more diverse than like 8,000 people? I don't know. Like Patreon it's a funnel, but it's not the actual source.
Right.
And
it's a good way to look at it, yeah.
And so to me, it really is a much more reliable in a way, because it's like you have people who are interested in the thing that they're paying for and not just in what you can give them as a deal. and in a way that makes keeping them happy much more natural, because they're interested in what you want to make, and you're interested in making the thing that's gonna make them happy, and it all just kind of like flows together. Whereas, yeah, with an advertiser, it's like, this month I'd rather, just send you some headphones rather than pay you. And it's like, well, that doesn't really work. And that honestly is how most of these advertising deals work.
Right.
They just want to throw stuff at you so you can put it on camera. And it's like, that doesn't pay for lights. I don't know.
Right.
So it is a tricky thing. And even at game trailers, with people who are professionals who do this every day, selling ads was not easy.
Right. And we would have to, like really bring in someone else that would take that for us. That would be like, no, because YouTube's changing every month. Like I got to follow like specifically what the right things to do are. So that could potentially be another revenue stream. But like one thing that's really interesting, especially now that we're like looking at our budget very, very closely, because we're figuring out how much does it make sense to spend money on stuff for, sets and improvements to the studio and the studio itself, is how cozy we are with the YouTube revenue that's coming in, the Twitch revenue that's coming in. Like that's just steadily grown as we've existed. And so again, that just kind of lumps into the big picture of just like how much money we can spend every month. But we do have various revenue streams. Again, it's not just Patreon and while those numbers are slowly going up, maybe we could focus more specifically on making things more viral on YouTube, or having a more consistent presence so more people tune in for longer on Twitch. And we might, explore that stuff in the future once we get the studio. But I think we're diversified enough. I feel cozy. Stefan Bean, after watching the top 10 Pokemon video, I have to say, one, I really like the format of one person being passionate about the topic, doing all the 10 tops, and also talking directly to the camera about it. Maybe you can do it again for future topics sometimes. Yeah, I would love to do that again.
This brings me back around to the Ben thing. I think the interesting thing about both of those instances is they work, and because those are things that both of them wanted to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not like we can just say, all right, this is how this is always going to work going forward.
Yeah.
Because that might not work out as well for me or for Damiani, for someone else that just doesn't feel as comfortable with just talking straight into the camera or just doing VO. I know the times, before Defy, there were a few things where we would just jump into that VO booth, and it was really hard for me to figure out this balance of like, how do I talk into the mic without sounding like I'm just reading something?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's like, yeah, those things worked because like that person's was interested enough in that and had the right skill set to make that work. And Kyle obviously had that skill set of talking into the camera.
We're also really lucky to have an audience that understands when we do something like that we're like, and not like, hey, look at the new awesomeness of this, like that Ben obviously communicates to everybody. Like, let me know what you think of this. This is an evolving format. And Kyle's like, hey, this is kind of irregular. And, let us, like, it's nice to hear that, like, I like those, obviously, it's fun to do the majority of the typical types of countdowns and then maybe have that be a special case. We all love Kyle. Number 2, we all love Kyle talking to the camera alone about things he's passionate about and putting deep thoughts into what to say. I look into the comments and the community is celebrating it. I will not ask for the final bossman like all of those commenters did, because the final bossman is dead forever and we all know it. Dun, dun, dun. But Kyle did a bossman at home with no high production value to his own channel, and it was all we wanted. Sadly, he never continued after doing the YouTube gaming job. Maybe you should do something like this when you move into the new studio. Talk to Kyle and create a different show than Final Bossman, but return to some things the community loved about the show. Do it in the regular schedule. Works with Game Sleuth 2. Do you think it would become a reality with this approach? No, he just doesn't. He doesn't want to do it. It's not, give me $20, Kyle. No, give me $20, Kyle. It's like, you should really get $20 from Kyle. It's like, I asked him. I can't. There's only so much I can do. I am oblivious to how much work went into Final Bossman. There's just no way I could know that. Like, so much of that was him at home, even though it was produced in the studio. That was him really thinking, using his like now box peak time to just like think about like what funny thing could I do this week? How could I change up? How could I surprise the audience? And it wasn't just, the episodes had a continuity to it. So it was like really like, something that he obsessed about. And I think in its heyday when it first started, like he was not working on the podcast. He was not like doing, the way he is now and not doing other things. So it just evolves, works on other stuff. I haven't done Trailer. I'm probably never going back to Trailer Academy. It's like there's just some things that just really fit a time and a place and a style and a part of your career. Mr. M, we know that the big aim goal project that you guys have as a group for some time now is the studio, but there are any plans for a project of similar magnitude for after you're in that studio? Would you guys turn to trying to overhaul the community side of things or simply try to hire a new editor as your next big thing? Personally, I'd look into creating an extreme redux of your website to make it more useful outside of just being a place to check the schedule. We don't we have a list. Nothing is really at the top of it. Like it's not ordered in any particular way. And updating the website is definitely on that list. We've talked about that a lot on Cup of Jones too.
Sure, but at the same time, it's this weird thing of like how much value does it actually
what benefits we get from that? Nothing, probably. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
It's really great for.
I think about Dave.
1,000 people that go to check it out.
I think about the scene in Dave when he's cutting the budget and all the press is there, and he's like, so we're paying this company to just make people more happy about the cars they already own? And the guy's like, well, I wouldn't phrase it like that. He's like, no, I'm sure. He's like, but I don't want to tell these kids that they can't eat or like when we have a home because we want to make people more comfortable about their cars. Do you want to tell them that? And the guy's like, no, Mr. President, I do not. And like, that's kind of, I don't know. Just like, it's like on loop in my brain. When I think about those things, it's like we would be making people happy. We would be improving the user experience. We'd be upping morale probably. We would be increasing integration with our existing properties. If there was a Hall of Great site, if there was a betting page where you could check the bets and comment on them and maybe up or down vote them or say the likeliness, the percentage that you think of who's going to win or whatever, be amazing. But like, what would it do? Would it make the Patreon number go up? Would it, like how big of that audience would it be? Also reminds me of like points. We had GT points back in the day where you like would use game trailers and you could win stuff. You could, and like, when we got rid of it, people were furious, but it was like less than 1% of our audience. It was like, and so, yes and no. It's a tough thing. Outside of just being a place to check the schedule or look up a score on a review to win an internet argument, like things like Twitch chat embedding, the Patreon feed, merch catalog before clicking through to the merch store, and a better YouTube format for trying to view stuff would go a long way to making that website and the attached forums a place that people actually use. Also, the merchandise links on the site links to the old store, aka the one without any merch that you released this year. It's true. It's just kind of weird because Fangamer only has a couple of things. Yeah, and so a lot of them are sold out right now.
Yeah.
So Kif, I might be an episode or two behind here. I've been getting crunched to deliver software, so I'm behind on a few things to have my holiday canceled. Anyway, sorry, Kif. Anyway, on the subject of spoilers and reviews, the perception that EZA have spoilery reviews is out there. A video game buddy of mine is aware of you guys, but isn't a patron. He knows that I'm a big fan of you guys. Thus, when we were discussing the reviews for Red Dead Redemption 2, he said, Easy Allies was slightly spoilery, as often feels the case for me. Personally, I feel you are less spoilery than a lot of the outlets where the review is basically just a description of the events. In any case, I can't speak for him or describe why he feels that way, but to the tune of at least one, the perception is that EZA is spoilery. Honestly, I don't know what more you can do to help without knowing exactly why he thinks that. Also, as an aside, please don't let Box Peak die on the vine between seasons. Keep it alive. It really is a fantastic creation and far better than a lot of stuff that gets greenlit on mainstream channels and platforms. Thank you, Kif. Yeah, I just think it is what it is. I just think no matter what we do, and I have gotten better at it. We back in the game trailers days when we reviewed Resident Evil 4, like way after when we started doing reviews, a lot of the editors were like, I want to review Metroid Prime, even though it came out like 2 years earlier, and we are like, fine, like why not? That'll get views. And the RE4, we just showed the ending. It's like we just didn't care, and like I've learned and gotten a lot better at it over time, even just doing Red Dead, I was surprised kind of the way people were like, don't show the snow. And it's like, all right. I'm like, okay. And it's also like the perception of the game, because it's like, I don't want things to be spoilery, but like I'm trying to make a point. And it's like, if I can't, if I'm saying something and showing not the thing, then that's like not spoilery, but now it's kind of misleading because now you're like, wait, that the beginning of the game is in Valentine? It's like, no, it's not. And so now they're like, well, it was just weird. And then they see another review and it's like, well, why did you deceptive about that? It's like, well, I'm trying to dodge spoilers because nobody wants, it's like, so like, am I misdirecting all the time? I'm cutting the Pokemon review right now and it's like, can I show him catching Mew? Is that a spoiler? It's like this game came out 20 years ago. Like what? So like I don't know. It's such a fine line, and I don't think there's a way to please everybody. So
I mean, I think that's the issue. Is like the video is important to us, and the argument is important to us, and critiquing story is important to us,
right?
And those things are going to lead to some degree of you seeing something that was not just the marketing materials, and it kind of just comes with the territory that like we're doing so much to avoid spoiling things, but at some point in a 6 to 10 minute video, you're gonna see something you haven't seen before. That doesn't necessarily make it a spoiler.
Yeah.
What's funny to me is whenever I like listen to like a movie review or something on the radio, and like, but they just said like the whole thing.
Yeah,
like they're not that worried about it.
Yeah. The other thing too is when you play like a 80-hour experience like Red Dead, and then you look back and you're like, okay, I don't want to tell people about 80% of this, and then someone's like, part of that 20% was spoilery. You're like, it's not. Trust me. Like I get, I can understand how you say that, but it's like that's such a small margin for error to not be focusing on stuff like that. But every time I see comments like this, I'm reminded that I should be careful of spoilers, but I'm not like, oh, that's a major problem of our reviews right now. I think we're doing okay. Matt Brookbank. I was watching the BoxBeat Q&A, not live, and it occurred to me that for the show to have legs and help it be found 2 years from now, it needs its own YouTube channel, separate from the Easy Allies YouTube channel. We have talked about this. Otherwise, it'll get lost under tons of other Easy A vids. Could contain the show, trailers, Q&A, BoxBeat song performances, maybe other originals like Busted Trifecta could get a similar treatment too. You're not wrong. We've talked about that. Possibly maybe when season 2's done, that's something that we'll consider.
I don't know how that necessarily would work in terms of whether YouTube would, go after them for being a duplicate video or something like that. It could be weird.
Kyle has brought that up, and he's just completely on the fence. He's just like, I can see both ways. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that one of the difficulties is, number one, you're talking about a channel has no subscribers, which in some ways benefits because anyone that would be there would just be there for BoxBeat. But then would they know about anything else that we do? Would they know that it's tied to us? And then the other thing that's weird about is that it is, at least at this point, just those episodes.
Right. And
then it goes away. And then like that kind of dies in its own way. So it's really weird trying to outthink the YouTubeness of things.
The original snitch. More of a comment than a question. I was watching the BoxBeat live Q&A for episode 5, and I heard you clapping and commenting off camera and off mic. It reminded me of E's Talk Soup and the Ringer's NBA desktop, in that there's some live presence behind the camera, usually no more than 2 to 3 people it seems. I was thinking this form of live studio presence would add a good dynamic and energy to a future show like Easy A Live. What do you think? Yeah, totally. I want to experiment a lot with what we record in what rooms in the studio and what kind of integration we can have and how much of that space we can get a camera on at any given time. So that if even if we don't necessarily have something in a setup, and we're recording some live thing or we're doing some reaction to something and then someone's like, wait, I got something to say. We're like, wait, we have a camera in there. Just hit the button. It's like, just, talk to people. Got to get Damiani a camera. That's like the, Kind of like the Damiani button, just like a electric shock under his chair. Like, just turn the camera on. Ben Metal. I don't comment for Cubba Jones very often, but I do listen every week. I have a relatively small nitpick about the show that's been bugging me for a long time. I mean this in the most respectful way possible. But would it be possible to lean away from the mic when you sip your water? I'm aware that it's tough to talk nonstop for over an hour and you need those sips of water, but the sound of it is just grating to me since I tend to listen on my phone with my earphones. I would never suggest that you stop having drinks on the show entirely, but I'd greatly appreciate it if you did lean away from the mic when you have your sips. Thank you, Ben. That's love and respect right there. I don't want to cross the line here. Sure. But you sip right into the mic and it's gross. Alexander Zirianov, when you edit, review, written by Blood, do you feel his shot log takes some creative freedom from you as an editor?
Oh.
Do you feel obliged to use his shots that he picked for you? Yes, I do. You know why? Because then I don't have to look for them. That is such a gift. No, it's a gift, man. It's like, oh, thank you, Blood. Thank you. Because it's like, a lot of times it's just that moment. It's not like, what? There are 40 options I could have used, and why should I pick that one, Blood? A lot of times, no, that's it. That's the, when you're like,
but at the same time, there are a lot of times where I have like 8 of that moment. It's not like, it's not a roadmap. It's not like put this here and just like, I'm not bothered with Premiere.
Yeah. And Damiani's not a big shot log guy, but Damiani does record clips for a specific purpose a lot, which I wish Ben and Huber did a little bit more of. Huber's fun because he won't do it, but he'll do it after the fact. So if you're like, and Brad will do that too, where I'm just like, I'm missing this shot. He's like, I'll get it now. And it's like, it could be in the footage. Just look at whatever. But Damiani will name a shot like with this. He's just like, I'm doing this in this shot. And like, oh, okay, cool. That's the language he used specifically in the review. So boom, got it.
And I actually will a lot of times specifically make sure I have the shot multiple times.
Right.
Like this is the shotgun headshot here, and then here this is a shotgun headshot here. Like, so you have options.
Right.
And
I don't get many shotgun headshots from you though, Bud. I don't. I want more shotgun.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a specific example.
Deus Ex. Like I can't. What's the last game you played that had a shotgun in it?
But yeah, actually, Deus Ex is a good example because like if I'm talking about a very specific ability, I don't want to just have that one shot to lean on. Like I want to be able to give you different options for that.
The big thing I need to know is bugs. Anytime somebody's like, the visuals are kind of wah, it's like, you need to let me know what shot, because I don't know what wah means to you. Like I don't know what you consider a bad frame rate. Like,
I will definitely hit that frame rate. Like frame rate here, frame rate here, frame rate here. Like,
but if you look at it, Alexander, on the flip side, when Blood lays out as much of the video for me as possible, that actually gives me more creative freedom to spend more time making other parts of the video better. So it's like if I'm working on a review and I spend a lot of time just like, I just don't know where the shot is, or I have clips that are each like 20 minutes long, and it's something like Final Fantasy 15 where they like went to the diner and fought that boss and then did some item things and did some cooking and then had a cutscene, and it's like there's so many things going on in this one clip. Then most of the time I'm spending editing, I'm just looking for things where if I don't, then if there's like a little fun montage or something I want to do at the end, I have time to do it, and I can just like spend a little more time juicing it up. Snowcone Guy, I would like it after you have chosen the Easy Egg Goatee if you were to make a separate video for that. Don't we do this? Didn't we make a separate video? I just think that we didn't VO it. It was just titles, right? Like we didn't write a script after the fact for each video. I think we did for Goatee, for Game of the Year. Yeah. I think we each wrote a paragraph for different games. We did like a top 10 list, I think.
I'm vague.
It's almost
exactly
time to,
what we did. It's been like a year.
It's almost that time to go back and look at what we did last year.
Yeah.
Something scripted with game audio where you run down what was nominated, why it was nominated, what won, and why. Peeking into the kitchen to get a look at how you decide those things is fun, but we shouldn't forget the actual meal. I would never watch that hours-long stream archive a second time, but a short video presenting the results and argument in summarized form.
Short video afterwards.
I would come back to that video several times over the course of the years. I also think that it would be good content to engage new audience members on YouTube. I have the exact same opinion of how you should handle your Best of E3 awards. Well, I love that's rough because we're so beat after E3.
There's no way to make that actually timely.
And so much of what we do is weekly and monthly that like we got to get right back into our schedule very fast.
Our E3 awards are already kind of late. Because everyone else just starts handing them out on the floor somehow,
Well, I love all your extra content, like Spoiler Mode, Box Peek, or Surprise Midnight Spider-Man streams. I think that the bread and butter of EZA is the business of high-quality videos with game footage and the famous Game Trailers guy voice. And while you do a great job in that department, I think you could slightly dial its priority up a notch. It's not a question of that not being valuable to our YouTube channel. It's just us planning a big event like that, having the energy and the time to do it after the fact. But it would benefit us, and so if we have the time, we'll do it. Daniel Garza Andrade, would you consider having a custom award like a Goatee discussion or Hall of Greats, like an actual award? You could call it the Sophie or something like that. Like an actual physical thing.
Can we tell them about what's in the bathroom?
Oh, sure. I love that thing.
Game
That's
trailers.
a treasured. Oh.
What was the bar for somebody to get?
Let me take off.
Go. Yeah. Okay.
Let's show everybody.
Yeah. So this wasn't for. I don't remember if we ever handed anything out for our Game of the Year awards, but we handed these things out for when people hit view counts.
Yeah.
10 million views here for God of War 3.
GameTrailers.com Diamond Award. God of War. GameTrailers.com Diamond Award, 10 million views. Presented to Santa Monica Studio to commemorate more than 10 million media views for the video game God of War 3. And they didn't want it, or so I don't know why. I don't know why this was still lying around when we left.
I think for some reason they might have made 2 of them. I don't remember why.
But yeah, there we go. But this is great. Like example, like we had a whole PR team that just did this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like we don't have that anymore.
I mean, yeah, at Viacom they were like walking distance away. So. But
I don't know about the Sophie. I don't know if we want to. Does that trivialize it to have like a cute name? Here's a stuffed animal. Here's your Game of the Year award. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't know. Food for thought.
Yeah.
Christopher Peterson. Box Peak is amazing and the best content I've seen from Easy Allies. What do we, the patrons, need to do to get Box Peak to be an ongoing series beyond 10 episodes? Inspire Kyle.
Yeah.
Kyle might take a long break after episode 10.
Well, you might know how Box Peak ends. I don't know how Box Peak ends. You don't know how Box Peak ends.
I know how Box Peak ends.
So that might not make any sense at all.
I know some crazy stuff coming up in season 2. I think the onus is really on us. I think it's like now that season 1 is over, once the studio stuff gets sorted out, I really want to start marketing that show more and do more of a build up leading into season 2, get more eyeballs on it. So whenever I think about Box Peak, it's never like our fans really need to back us up on that. I think everybody's really been great about it, especially seeing all the art and all of the thank you to everybody who sent kind things to Amanda. She's just been riding high ever since season 1 started because it's really fun for her to, not only see all that come to fruition, but she's never like been a lead in something animated before. So she had a blast, that whole process. Z Carts. When you said you would start paying rent on the 1st of December, I was pleasantly surprised about how fast that would be. When you said that you had to set up lights and sets, my mind immediately went to the incredible Jolly E3 gear unpacking video. It depends on how much you would want to share, keep a surprise, but I was wondering if it would be possible to share some of that experience, a possibly patron exclusive in a similar fashion. I'm sure we would all love to see the space and how you enjoy or envision it. Hell yeah. Yeah, we're going to be recording all that stuff. But you probably won't see the majority of that until after we do an official debut of the new space. Kevin
There's
K.
also the awkward Christmas break.
Really awkward Christmas break.
Yeah, no matter what. Like, it's a weird
awkward
time if we get it. It's like, we're just not going to be here.
Yeah. It's gonna be woof.
Ian is
we're moving into a new studio and bringing in a whole brand new year. This channel's gonna be bumpy. There's gonna be some weird episodes. We're gonna be, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing for Cup of Jones during that time. Yeah. Kevin K. Greetings from Germany. I only recently found out about Easy Allies, and as a former GT fan, could you do a quick recap of the events leading from GT to Easy Allies? Bloodworth?
Yeah, so we all worked together for years. Okay. Then Viacom sold us to Defy.
Really?
Yeah, and so majority of our staff was laid off at that point. And then we were with Defy and had to completely reinvent ourselves and learn entirely new jobs. It's particularly Brandon and I, who had never been in charge of anything before. Yep. I think maybe I scheduled my own like Gamescom one year or something. That was like the most authority I'd had in anything. And then some more people got laid off a few months after that. And then a year later, we all got laid off. And a bunch of people told us to do a Patreon, and I thought that would never work.
Yeah, Cup of Jones hot takes. I love it.
And I was very wrong.
Nice. Daniel Fuchs. I'm a $25 patron for a while now. I like how people say a Patreon. I'm a $25 Patreon. It's like a good start.
It's a weird word. Come on.
It is a weird word.
You can't give anyone.
I'm a $25 patron for a while now, and I would like to actually up my pledge, but there's a little problem I have. None of the tiers above 25 are attractive to me. Shots fired at Blood Pact. A fan mail is a nice thing, but I'd rather have something where I feel that my pledge for a specific tier lets me participate more with EZA rather than just receiving an email. And something like the $60 pledge isn't really interesting because I almost never have time to watch your streams. That's also because I'm living in Europe and the time difference makes it hard to watch often. I know that I could basically just up my pledge because I love you guys, but I would hope you may consider a new tier or two that let Patreon interact more with you. I'm not sure if other fellow patrons feel the same. But when you look at the number of patrons that are podcast producer to the number of patrons that pledge for the digital fan mail, the drop is quite huge. And I think with a more attractive tier, more patrons might be willing to make the jump from $23 to $40 or $50 a month. Excuse me. $40 tier would be nice.
Sure.
Something to think about.
I think, well, I have two thoughts on
kind
this.
Of restructuring the whole thing when, it's worth a thought, Just jumbling
Patreon
it all
does
up.
not make that fun.
Jumbling it all up, blood. Moving this over here.
But there's two things I think need to be kept in mind. Number one, anything above $25 is a huge amount of money for somebody to give every month. And then number two, a lot of people have suggested like, hey, give us new tiers, even in lower places. Like let's get more tiers, and that would help, raise people up to those spots. The trick is not that another tier would be great. It's what do we put with that tier?
Yeah,
and so it really would be up to somebody to come up with like this killer idea that it's like, that would be great for this specific hole in the tiers for rewards, because in a lot of ways, like I can't definitively say that we've exhausted all the options, but in terms of what works, like we kind of have representations of many of those different things, and the only other thing that really works for people is something like a Loot Crate, where we like have somebody actually shipping physical stuff out every month, and that's really somebody's whole job pretty much.
Jesse and I just wondering if EZA will be covering the Kind of Funny showcase on the 8th of December. From what Greg has been saying about it, the showcase seems fairly meaty with over 60 games to show off, and there's sure to be some exciting stuff in there. We're not going to. And this has been an interesting thing because our weird reasoning for it is that we kind of, Kyle has a reason and I have a reason. Okay. Kyle's reason, which I agree with, is we tend to make fun of companies a lot. Like we tend to like watch videos and be like, what's going on? Like I just raked Bethesda when I watched like their E3. And I'm so glad that I got like my just desserts a little bit, or that Bethesda did with the, Fallout now, with just how cocky they were and like how slow they were like doling out information and like the spotlight on Todd Howard. But it's like we definitely need to open up that possibility of like, this is bad, to be like, we don't like this. I'm going to be heavily critical of this. And I just don't want to do that with Kind of Funny. Like, I'm really curious to see what it is and how it happens. Also, when a big company like Sony or there's E3 or Nintendo Direct or something, it's kind of like we all push and shove to try to entertain you the most for you to come by our camp and hang out with us and do reactions. And so when a bigger company does something in the video game industry, and then we're like, okay, we know that Kind of Funny is going to be there. We know Giant Bomb's going to be there. We know like everyone's going to be doing their own reactions, like, no, like, screw Kind of Funny. Come over to us and watch us like talk about stuff. Like we're the party that you're going to want to hang out at. Whereas now that Kind of Funny's doing something, it's like, no, just go watch their thing. Like, don't watch us react to their thing. Go watch that. Like, we want to support Kind of Funny. And so don't be on our channel, be on their channel. Go watch that. And that might be wrong. Like, when the show's over, we might be like, yeah, we could have totally reacted to that. We just have no idea what it's going to be. Well, and I've like poked and prodded Greg, but like, he's keeping a lot of that close to his chest. So, we're just going to kind of let that happen and just see what it is. And then maybe he does it again next year. Maybe PSX comes back and he doesn't feel a need to. But I'd rather just EZA kind of step away from that and just appreciate it for what it is and watch it.
I think too, I mean, the announcements obviously make it a whole different beast. But part of it to me feels like us commenting on somebody else, like a podcast that would be commenting on somebody else's podcast.
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure that there are those out there. I'm sure there are podcast reviewers. And that's one of the reasons I was on the fence about the PC gaming show for a while. I was like, well, this is PC gamers show. Like, why are, it's strange for us to to be doing that, you know.
Yeah.
And eventually it's like, okay, this actually does feel very separate from that, like, and so we can cover this in a more appropriate way. And for now, we'll just have to see what kind of fun he does.
Choconat says at least host the show on your Twitch channel. That'd be great. Yeah,
we can do that.
That'd be really fun
if we remember, if we get poked about it.
And I'll probably be live tweeting the thing.
If Twitch will let me host.
Right.
I have to host from my phone right now. I don't know why.
I'm so sorry.
If I type host into a browser, it doesn't actually do anything.
I'm sorry. Megan Leinart, I was wondering, are you guys going to plan to do a best VR category in the GOTY discussions? Hell yeah! I've been getting prepped for that. I think VR, especially PSVR, is better than it's ever been, but it's not covered all too much. Just wondering if you guys are planning on doing that at all. Yeah, I'm going to push for that big time. That we're going to have a GOTY discussion, because I will have played everything. And it's neat. The guys definitely are like something like Astrobot. Like a lot of the guys internally are like, everybody's got to play this. If you have access to it, like you have to check it out. I think most of us have finished Moss too. So like, yeah, there's a lot of PSVR and Tetris Effect, obviously. But yeah, excited to talk Beat Saber. Tanner Holmes, something I noticed recently is that essentially none of the content on your main channel consists of you guys actually playing games. While I think the abundance of podcast interview style videos you guys put out is fantastic, I also think you're missing an opportunity to make some of your more casual audience feel a more personal connection with the 9 of you, a connection that could possibly lead to financial endorsement. We do have group streams. I mean, the group streams are on
the main
they're
channel,
not, but we do have because that's exclusive to Patreon. I thought there was something. Maybe it's just reactions. Is what I'm thinking.
There's
you would think those would be on
easy
plays,
update from time to time. We'll have that stuff. The one with Huber playing Stifled was a good one.
Right. But the vast difference in subscriber numbers between that and your main channel makes me think that I know you have the Easy Allies Plays channel to hold all of your gameplay streams, but the vast difference in subscriber numbers between that and your main channel makes me think that your wider audience is either unaware of it or uninterested in watching multi-hour long streams. This is unfortunate because some of the best EZA moments come from these streams, particularly the group streams where you guys are hanging out with less structure and just cracking jokes off the cuff. So I'm wondering if you've ever considered putting out a weekly highlights video of the group stream. We did that for a while. It's called Easy Allies Clips. Damiani's been focusing on other features, so he hasn't been able to do it.
I think the difference here is they said the group stream specifically.
Right.
Which is an interesting take on it.
I think being able to watch your reactions to the ups and downs of the gameplay and being able to stay up to date with some of the inside jokes in a 20 to 30 minute long video would be very endearing to the casual viewer. But the clip series kind of touched on this idea, but I feel it missed the mark as the solo streams are often less entertaining and there was no overall through line to follow. I know you guys pretty much maxed out a workload right now, but I truly believe a weekly video like this could bring in a much higher view count and potential patrons than many of your other weekly shows, closer to your reaction videos, which give the same unstructured vibe. Just an idea I've been thinking of as a way to stay above 50K and move beyond, and wanted to hear your thoughts. Yeah, same with clips. Like I love it. I wish we had time to do it.
Yeah,
and
it's interesting to think,
depending on how our production schedule is restructured
doing
after studio, we might be able to.
Like that. It would probably only be like 4 or 5 minutes at the most. But
for the group stream, you think that would be the best?
Oh yeah.
That's the only good stuff out of 2 hours, I guess. Yeah.
Even clips itself was what 10 to 15.
Good point.
The highest. Yeah, you don't want anything like to be super long.
But again, that also kind of factors into kind of what we're talking about, like rebroadcasting some things on Twitch, like repurposing the stuff that we're already doing because we're like, we have these new tiers, and how much more new tiers can we have? How much more work can we do? And opportunities can we provide for our audience with the schedule that we have? And so I think a smart thing is to consider repurposing stuff that we're already producing in another format for people to enjoy in a different way. So yeah, I put that on that list.
But going back to what they were saying about Easy Allies Plays, number one, that channel exists because of what we saw happening when we first started. Everything originally was on the main channel, and instantly it was clear that there were people that did not want to watch that, very specifically, and so for them it was clogging the channel, and it was also clogging the channel for us because like, okay, well, we've got all these streams, but where's the review, where's the Huber syndrome? Right. So it is a lot in both hours and number of videos, and despite the low subscriber count, when things are good, they do get views. the Hitman streams have done well. The Quiet Man stream has done well comparatively, for stuff on that channel. Like people find out about it. People spread the word. People check to see what's happening. Yeah, even if a lot of the average solo streams or whatever. Don't.
I think it's worth, whenever Clips comes back, or maybe something like this, for it to function, because I'm not sure if we did this at the end of Clips, that we advertised Easy Allies Plays, that like, if you like this, go check out Easy Allies Plays, or like link to it.
We definitely linked to it.
Yeah.
We didn't do like any kind of extra video for that show or anything though.
Yeah, it might be fun. Just put that, just like try to view that show as like a doorway for people to find the main channel and be like, oh, what's this? Hasney, I think the public video was really well received, and it's always good to point to YouTube. Oh, this public video, meaning this comment came from the recorded video that I did last Cup of Jones was public. And it's always good to point the YouTube audience towards Patreon, as well as give patrons an update that see a 2-hour Cup of Jones and don't think they have time for that. I think this should be a monthly update for that audience, a good opportunity to talk about the highlights of the previous month, what's going up next month, and any interesting developments people might not be aware of, such as the studio search right now. To give your time back, I'm sure we could cope with 3 cups a month to allow you to get the update out there. Alternatively, you could give a more general address for the month at the beginning of a normal Cup of Jones before interacting with chat and clip that part out. Either way, I think that semi-regular business content update could really help engage with the audience that isn't glued to the Patreon. Totally. I think we've gotten really good reactions from all those various videos that I put up. And that's something that I've been thinking of, because I'm not like acting on right now because the studio is the focus. But once everybody moves out, I'm going to like build a little space in here, because I'm going to like be streaming from here. And so like, I kind of want, this room is very multi-purpose, but like, if everyone's gone and it's just me, then like I can still work at a desk that I stream from, that I play games at, that I get, it's like I can make that space and make it work. And I've thought about like, once I do that, it's probably a good time to kind of rethink Cup of Jones in its entirety, and one of the things I've been thinking of is like, maybe the whole part of the show where I update everybody, maybe that's public every week. You know what I mean? Like maybe, maybe like what you're actually tuning in for, like what you actually like put the dollar in, is to like have the Q&A, like have that part of like, no, I want to ask you a question and I want to get an answer. Like I specifically want you to give me more details about that thing you mentioned. Whereas if you're not a paying patron, you just get me being like, hey, Tuesday night, this is the stream, this is the thing, 8 minutes, like watch Box Peak, Fancy 15, yada, yada. And then maybe not, once a month sounds great. I think that would probably be a much more conservative example of that, but like even potentially every week, and when I sit down and do this, shoot 2 things, maybe like do the Cup of Jones first, and then after that, shoot something else.
Or maybe do like you still want to keep the Patreon thing called Cup of Jones, I would think, maybe.
Yeah, and then maybe that's the other thing too, is that like I think new people coming in, I'm always nervous, like new people coming in are like, cup of what? Like it just doesn't it doesn't sound like what it is. It's Game Trailer's problem. So maybe there's like the patron report or something that's the little quick video that goes up from me, and then if you want Cup of Jones, because it has more personal stuff in it and more just my
but I was just thinking that it might be good if you do split it up.
Patrons get jazz, YouTubers no jazz.
If you do end up splitting it in a way,
$1 for that jazz.
It might be good for the public thing to go up a day or 2 before the patron Q&A, so people can actually ask you things closer to when you've announced them, rather than a week later.
Yeah. A lot of different ways that could go. Liz Castro, once the studio becomes a reality, I'm wondering if you would introduce a sponsorship tier to temporarily name the studio after someone. SciShow and Crash Course used to do this on their videos. For example, Crash Course is brought to you by generous donations and filmed at the Laurel and Hardy Studios. If you would like to sponsor, blah, 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 etc. Just a thought, maybe in lieu or in addition to the podcast producer tier. The Mango Studios.
Yeah.
There's your $10,000. $10,000, patreon.com, one time.
That kind of thing, like it's obvious, it's a huge business thing,
the
right?
Hogue Law Studios.
For businesses to have their names on buildings. It always annoys me though. Like the Staples Center or Nokia Theater. The Nokia Theater is now the Microsoft Theater. Right, it's a place. We know the place. Now I gotta remember like what the new name of the place is, just because some other company got interested. It's weird. Although, obviously our studio would not have that problem whatsoever. It's a strange thing.
Welcome to the first episode of ECA Live, everybody. Brought to you from the Fatburger Studios. I'm Brandon Jones. Rammer, I would just like to echo another patron sentiment regarding patron tiers. I also think it may be time to take a hard look at what your higher tiers are rewarding patrons. Thankfully, I am financially stable enough to work to up my pledge, but I'm having a hard time convincing myself it is worth the higher pledge, other than knowing my pledge will benefit your business. Here are some takeaways I came across regarding two specific tiers. 1, $20 live Q&A. Patreon tier number, a decrease of around 700 patrons at the time of this writing compared to the $10 tier. Analysis. The massive drop-off compared to the previous tier indicates the average patron does not see a value in this tier on its own. It's extremely relevant to look at the next tier's numbers. Number 2, $25 podcast producer. Patron tier number, an increase of around 200 patrons at the time of this writing compared to the $20 tier. Analysis. Despite the increase in cost, there's an increase in numbers. This suggests that the extra $5 spent has a value in the average patron who would have bothered dropping $20 already. My thoughts. I have no large empirical data, but I do see a pattern with you and other similar creators. I believe $5 is that sweet spot where the price increase is mild enough that the average person will say, sure, why not? Unfortunately, I don't have any other suggestions at the moment other than to relay the message that perhaps some of the new type of new or change in tiers between the $25 to $60 level may lead to more people feeling good about dropping some of that lovely cash. What are your thoughts? Definitely. I will think of that possibly if we can consider more tiers, not having them be massive gaps between other tiers, just slight bumps. I definitely agree with that. As Genesis, in the latest episode of Spoiler Mode, you said you didn't feel Super Smash Bros. Controls. Whoa, this is totally a personal question. I'm sorry. Maybe we can just jam it in real quick. Super Smash Bros. Controls were intuitive or something along those lines. Could you elaborate why? Context, I find it fascinating as this is the second big difference of opinion, game control related, that I have compared to you. And I do get quite curious to hear a complete opposite side of mine from people that can articulate their opinion like yourself. What I like the most about Smash, even beyond being a big party of characters and game franchises that I love, is that all fighters share the same simple control scheme. There's no list of obtuse 12-button sequences, 5/8 circle, Z motion, single frame cancel nonsense that you need to learn for each individual character in other games. And yet, there's still plenty of normal attacks and ways to utilize and modify special ones. It allows me to focus on what each fighter can do rather than how to pull it off. My only gripe with the default controls is using up on the stick to jump, but that's something that every version of the game allows you to disable in favor of using a face button, at least since Melee when I really got into it. I believe you can jump two different ways. I think there is a face button that jumps and up jumps as well, right?
Yeah, he's saying that you can disable up jumping.
Ah, okay. And turn to something else. Yeah, when I say intuitive, it's not like a stab at... It's not like there's an issue with it. It's, for example, like I don't play a ton of fighting games. When I played Injustice, I just tried on every single character, and Catwoman of all things was like my jam. Like it just, every time I like wanted Catwoman to do something, she did it. And I was like, I'm just naturally adapting to the way that she fights. And having played like Soul Calibur, I just kind of naturally adapt to. Tekken, not so much. Street Fighter, I'm terrible at. Mortal Kombat, I'm very bad at. The original Mortal Kombat before Injustice. I just can't. It just like there's such a difference, I think, when you're in the air versus when you're on the ground and attacking something. And I think there's just like it's not so much like the moves that you're doing, it's like how you can understand your space and how quickly you'll be able to get close to somebody and attack them and then get out of that space. The whole idea, like for some reason, like, you know, when you watch people, like you like tell your parents how to game and you're just like, or like Amanda sometimes when like she's playing stuff and I'm just like, yeah, you just press that button. And like, it's not that her brain can't understand it. It's just like, it's all happening so fast that it's getting in the way and it's like, you know, clouding her decision-making process. And that's what happens when I play Smash. Like, whenever I get knocked off the side, I know what button gets me back up, but it's not working. Like I see Kyle will be like flip, 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 and he'll grab, and I'll be like flip, and then I'll hit it again, and it doesn't do anything. And I'm like, what am I like? How did Kyle do the 5 flip back up to the platform? And like I just can't make it happen. And so it's not like Smash has bad controls. It's just that like they just don't naturally adapt. Like because just casually playing over the years has not made me better.
He's not actually jumping that many
I need
times.
to deliver, deliberately.
Or Kirby will have more jumps. But yeah, generally you've got one double jump.
And then some have like an ability that'll just like swoop them up.
Your up ability.
Right.
Yeah.
like I know that and I can recite that in my brain, but actually just instinctively doing it. A long time ago, a friend of mine compared that to the melee button in any shooter. He's like, I just never, especially in multiplayer, when like you get up close and then they just like in Halo and they'll just like, shotgun butt you in the face. He's like, they did that because they didn't have to think of, their brain wasn't like R3. It just clicked it. And it's like, I've never crossed that fence, stepped over it into the realm of like, I naturally am good at Smash Brothers. Like I really have to think about everything that I'm doing when I play it. But I am excited to get better. Dennis Mullert, as a big fan of your betting specials, I was really hoping we'd get another one for the Game Awards next week, but you ruled that out due to being judges for the show. That's fair, but wouldn't that only be a problem when you bet on the actual awards? Couldn't you just bet on the announcements and world premieres and be fine? Alternatively, on December 8th, the first Kinda Funny showcase will be streamed live, and Greg Miller posted on Twitter that at least 63 games will be shown. It'll likely be mostly indie games, but there's still lots of bets you can make. I don't know, just an idea. I think the betting specials are one of the most liked things you guys produce, and it'd be kind of a bummer if we'd get less and less of them. I agree. I want to turn that ship around. We've also talked about, we were bringing the other allies, and a lot of people really wanted the betting specials to stay Bossman, Huber focused. And so we definitely want to do that moving into 2019. Just a lot of events got canceled and a lot of projects and the studio search behind the scenes. Kyle is actually involved with the Game Awards. So Kyle knows some stuff
Kyle
that's going to be there, so he can't bet on
Game
that
Awards
stuff.
betting special, yeah.
That's the other issue about Game Awards.
Really write it or anything, yeah.
And it's just kind of not prudent. You know what I mean? It's just like kind of grody for us to be like, yeah, we're involved, but not as much as to say for this bet. It's just like, God, if there's any kind of discrepancy there, if there's any kind of any cloudiness, it's just, I don't want that to be there. Sarah, I wanted to express my fondness for the rerun of the group stream last week, the 20th of November. Again, thank you to Kristen. As someone in the EU time zone area, it's something that I never get to see on Twitch with other viewers. I understand that you and the allies can't stay up until 4 a.m. to cater for the EU viewers, and while seeing it live would be ideal, I think that a weekly rerun on Twitch is a great idea. Was the rerun successful? Is this something you would like to continue in the future? Yes. Hopefully we don't forget to do that, but and we'll be experimenting with more stuff like that in the future as well. Alec Church, this past May, the Los Angeles Convention Center operator AEG proposed a $1.2 billion hotel and convention center expansion. Mm-hmm. You can view a rendering and the full story here, and he provides a link if you want to check that out. It seems to me like the essence of it is building a structure that connects West Hall and South Hall in order to create one contiguous exhibit hall and some additional meeting room space in upper levels. Another perk is an expanded parking structure for LA Live. Construction would take about 2 years, and they hope to be done by 2022 at the latest. Given the recent discussions in the future of E3, how do you think this expansion of the venue factors into the future of the E3 experience? It seems very possible that either next year or the year after that, E3 will be heavily impacted by construction. Whee!
Yeah. GDC's been going through this. That venue had been being reconstructed. They're like walking around construction walls and things like that.
So you can do in a convention somewhere and technically be under construction at the same time.
Yeah. What's interesting is this is not the first time that AEG has proposed this. When they were talking about the football stadiums. Mm-hmm. They were talking about putting a football stadium right there.
Nice.
And part of that included them reworking the convention center as well. So this is something that's been batted around for quite a while. And so kind of like with our own studio real estate issues, like it takes time to get something that massive off the ground and actually happening. But I think it's very necessary, particularly for E3. Like if we want to keep E3 in our hometown, like that's gonna have to happen, especially if they don't back down from it being a public show. There just needs to be more space.
Right. And from our perspective, covering E3, it's not like E3 will go from being extremely comfortable and non-stressful to like some crazy thing because they're doing construction. Like it's always nuts. Sure. So it'll just be a different kind of nuts, I guess. All right, time for feedback. Personal. Feel free to interject if you want to, Blood. But if you don't, I'll get through these very quickly. And then we can get set up for your stream. Steve S. When Red Dead Redemption 3 comes out 6 to 8 years from now during the PS5, Xbox 2 generation, not confirmed at all, I could see Red Dead totally skipping next gen. Would you rather it be A, a prequel to Red Dead Redemption 2 with the meeting of Dutch and Hosea and the formation of the gang, B, a sequel to Red Dead Redemption 1 featuring Jack as he deals with World War I and or the Roaring Twenties, or C, a completely new cast idea set in the West? I have a favorite idea and then a second favorite. My favorite's actually to recon the whole thing, just brand new. What they did with GTA 4, they'll lightly mention Vice City and San Andreas and those other things, but GTA 4 was kind of a reboot. I would be totally fine with a reboot. But Hubert talks about Boardwalk Empire a lot, and I think it would be interesting if Red Dead Redemption 3 was after Red Dead Redemption 1 and focused on, you get rid of the whole narrative of like the West was over. Like it's still there. Like the West, it's 2018, and like you can still die in the desert. Like it's like there's still places you can go where there's no one there. Like there's still a wild frontier. So like even if it's in like the teens or the 20s, I think it would be really interesting to, because it's fascinating when you first go into Saint Denis and you're like, wow, look at this city, and you see people and they're dressed so differently. And it'd be interesting if like Rockstar made a game where half of it was GTA and half of it was Red Dead. It was like half of it is just a huge city sim, it's just like a really big city with vehicles and everything, and then like you can take those vehicles out into the West, but like you really see the difference in lifestyle between these big metropolises and this kind of wide open countryside. And they've kind of slowly been imitating like the southern part of the US. It's kind of like, what's that?
Someone said some of the light over the Christmas tree flickering, but I don't.
Whoa. They maybe it's the candles on the menorah. But yeah, it would just be interesting. It'd be interesting to see the difference between those two lifestyles. But yeah, I'm not not even thinking about Red Dead Redemption 3, especially with Red Dead Online now going. It's like
I just saw, I don't know which light it is, but one of them is popping on and off.
Oh,
it's gotta be that guy.
We'll let you know.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. Small Leviathan. I realize in advance that my question today may come off in a number of ways, and most of them negative, but I thought I've been pondering on it for a while now and I can't seem to let it go. Red Dead Redemption 2 has been out for a while now, and it's received almost unmatched acclaim for its technical marvel and attention to detail. Red Dead Redemption 2 was also backed by an impossibly large budget and a ludicrous marketing campaign. Much of the same could be said for GTA 4 and GTA 5, technological showstoppers with ridiculous budgets that received breathless praise from all sides. But is that all there is to it? Is pushing the technological boundaries really all you need to become the best game ever? If so, doesn't that mean that the heights of video games as an artistic medium are only achievable by multi-billion-dollar corporations with limitless budgets? I know I may come across as pretentious, but I have this unsettling feeling I can't shake. It truly does seem to me like, with the way the culture of video games reviews currently is, that the 10 out of 10s and 5-star ratings are held exclusively for the games that can pump the most money into their development, and that more focused, more personal projects are always going to be relegated to getting 8s and 7s. In spite of their artistic merits. Red Dead Redemption 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, but was it always going to be in spite of its artistic merits? As mentioned, I realize this may come across as potentially inflammatory or insulting, and that's truly not my intention. It's just that this is a thought that's been gnawing at me for some time, and I can't seem to let it go. I will say that when you think of like value, when you think of like compared to other games, like any game, that it is kind of hard to disregard the fact that there is so much more going on here. Like there's so much more to do. If I'm paying $60 for this game and $60 for this other game, and this other game is not just like longer, like it'll take you longer to experience it. There's more value for it. Mm-hmm. I think the same is true of Smash Brothers. It's like that campaign looks really fun. Yeah, multiplayer, you have single player offerings. Like there's just a lot packed into the soundtrack alone. I saw a really funny tweet the other day where it's like, oh look, the soundtrack comes with this fun fighting game, and there's just a lot of value for.
It's got that mode where
potentially
you can
different people
stick the headphones in and turn the screen off and they'll keep playing.
So what, I mean, like what's a good 10 out of 10 independent game? Like Journey? Like what's a good...
Yeah, I think Journey's a good example of something like that. I mean, I can't make any predictions now, but something like Grease seems interesting.
Right.
I think there's definitely things that you can do that don't necessarily rely on a gigantic budget if you have the right story to tell and you have a way of making people think outside the box.
When I review a game, I'm not thinking about like, is this art? I'm not thinking like, is this really pushing like the medium forward as far as like artistic representation. It's like, what they do? How was this made? What were they trying to do when they made this game? What experience were they trying to make me experience? And like I'll give you a 10. Portal's probably a 10, because it's like when I'm done with Portal, even though that's a small game, this game doesn't need anything. Like I can't think of something that like they should have added to Portal. Like there's, oh, well, that one part's like weird. And I don't know if they were developing this, if they didn't have time for this. Like if Portal was $60 on its own, it'd be like, I have no idea why it's that expensive. And so I think that's the issue with a lot of independent experimental games is you start to wonder like, well, this was really fun. And I think people should experience this, but it's tough to compare to something like, I know that they did all the work that they could possibly do, but like I have seen teams of similar size. I've seen other people like for this price, for this size of a game, just make me think about things less when I'm finished with it in terms of what could have also possibly been a part of it. And I think like a lot of these independent games, we play them, something like The Messenger. It's like, this is really fascinating, or Celeste, like there's a lot going on here, but it's just like, I hit credits and I can think of a billion things that they should possibly do. Guacamelee 2, it's like, that was really fun, but at the same time, like there is some weird stuff that was in the game, first one, that they didn't fix in the sequel. And it, like with Red Dead, like I was at like 70% of completion of the game, and I was just like, this is already a 10. Like I'm so overwhelmed by the amount of things in this, and so yeah, it's tough because you don't want. Same thing can be said for food. It's like, do you really need to spend all of that money to make food taste better? It's like, sometimes, yeah. Like sometimes as far as really making like, what is that? What am I eating? This is crazy, And I'm not talking about like gold-plated hot dogs or like just really really crazy inventive use of ingredients and technology that you would use in the kitchen, and like and so I don't want to. It's a tough thing, Small Leviathan, which is why like I don't think you're coming across negatively, or this is something that shouldn't be considered and shouldn't be talked about, because it can be frustrating to like an independent game or like a small idea that was done really well or should be played by a lot of other people, but you're like, it's just not getting the press that it got because it's not getting perfect scores. But then again, you play something that just completely blows your mind as far as how much effort was done comparative to things that we are expected to experience for the same amount of time for the same cost. But yeah, I don't know, I'm not 100% happy with my answer to that one. That's an interesting thing to meditate on. Any personal take on that? You're being quiet on that one, which is
no,
which I safe.
Yeah, I thought I kind of chipped in there a little bit, but
I
think to me, yeah, like a 10, like a 10 is obviously not going to be perfect, but I think it just kind of shows sort of the pinnacle of what games can be, and potentially goes beyond that. Like you didn't just make a really great version of something we're like very familiar with. Like you thought outside the box, Yeah. And I think that's where something like Journey or Portal like comes into that. Is like, yeah, I never thought of that before, and now I can't unthink of that. Like Portal just seems like such a like thing that's been riffed on so many times, and and that's why I still kind of like look at the first Portal higher than Portal 2, even though you could say all of these great improvements they made in Portal 2, it still is like, well, you had, Portal there first. And even though there was the student project before that, Portal was one like that actually like became a real tangible reality.
I'm so glad Portal was spoiled for me that I just jumped in. Like I was relatively early on that. I think I just with Orange Box. I like got Orange Box, and it was just like, what a treat to be like, what's this? Like it's so cool. Like, Portal. Sounds interesting. The other thing too, to end my rambling statement, is there are so many games every year for all the Red Deads. There are so many other games that so much money is spent on that are not great, And so it's not, you don't just throw money at something and then you're done. Straw Hat Ninja, I was wondering if you or any of your allies get gaming fatigue at all. I know it's fun to constantly play games and I love doing it, but I'm sure it can get stressful and tiring only focusing on one hobby. No, I'm pretty voracious when I consume games. I love like playing a game on the Switch and something on the console and on my console that's loading or downloading, and then I like, go to my phone and play Galaxy of Heroes. I love just being like, haha, I'm surrounded. But I mean, I get fatigue, just sleep for like I'm tired right now because I haven't been sleeping much this week. But so I get like that fatigue. And the only other thing that I can compare to this that happens every now and then is I'll finish a game and I'll be like, I should really move on to something else, and I'll just look at like 8 games and I'm like, I just don't know. Like, I don't like, nothing's really pulling me in one direction, which is like a great problem to have.
Sure.
But that's the only thing I can think of as far as fatigue, that like, and it happens sometimes when like either the business or my general interests make the fact that there's no question what the next game I'm going to play is. And I kind of hit that, before Red Dead came out, where it was just like Spider-Man I was obsessed with, and then Dragon Quest I really wanted to finish. And then like when that was done, I was like, oh yeah, what should I, like there were some sales this weekend. I picked up Doom for $14, and it was just like, yeah, I'll probably get to that one day. But that happens every now and then. Ryan Metcalf, I have a question regarding your experience reviewing Red Dead Redemption 2. I sometimes have sympathy for game reviewers when they have to review games that take 50 hours plus to complete. You mentioned that you played Red Dead Redemption 2 for 6 or so days. I'm guessing that means you played for over 10 hours a day. Did you ever feel sad that you had to play such a great game in such a short amount of time? I can only play for about 2 hours a day before getting tired, so I was wondering how you manage that. I was just obsessed. I was so excited about playing that game. And I let all my friends and family know like before,
right,
like months in advance. Amanda's birthday was around that time, and I was just like, sorry, hon. But yeah, I mean, boohoo, I got to play that game before a lot of people. I got to finish that game before a lot of people started it. And so I was not a fan of rushing it. I missed a lot of things that I would have loved to have checked out. I couldn't have, upped my score at all. But
right.
So yeah, that was a bummer, but it's not something that I'm like, that was a fantastic opportunity.
The biggest one that I had to try to hit a deadline on that was crazy. Probably the craziest was Witcher 3 when we were at Game Trailers, and it was like, sorry guys, I'm working at home, and it was just sort of, and I just sort of set up like a completely different routine in terms of sleep schedule and everything, because it was just like, all right, I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna get through whatever emails are there, and then I'm just gonna play the game until I get tired, and then when I get tired, I'm gonna go sleep. And it's like, it doesn't matter what the heck that time is, and but I also kind of like looked at like the whole outline of like the week or week and a half that I had, and like, okay, up until this day, I'm just gonna play this game the way I would play it otherwise. And then after that point, then I will start narrowing in towards, okay, just the more important side quests, and then just the main quest or whatever, because when you're dealing with open world games, like that's one of the difficulties is like, yeah, you can beat Fallout 3 in, a couple hours. That you didn't play that game, just because you saw the credits. Yeah. So you gotta experience some of that side stuff.
Chris Irely, why did your wife Amanda not take your last name as her own? Was she too embarrassed to be known as Jones? Just kidding. But in all seriousness, I've seen it happen a lot with actors in Hollywood, where even though one famous actor marries another famous actor, they both keep their last name, usually for not wanting to lose name recognition and for work-related reasons. Was that the similar reason for your wife, since she is a voice actor, or another reason that may or may not be too personal to answer? Yeah, it's like it's like calling ourselves Game Trailers versus Easy Allies. Like, Amanda Troop is her brand. She has Amanda_Troop on Twitter, and like, that's awesome. I would love Brandon_Jones. It's never gonna happen. But and so that's basically it. And it was as simple as, because I had some friends at the time, they were like, oh really, she's not taking it, oh that's a scandal, and I'm just like, I don't care. Like, it just was never that important to me. And so we were talking about like potentially having like kids one day, and it's like, would that be Troop, would that be Jones, would it be Troop Jones? And I'm just like, that whatever. It doesn't matter. Kids can call themselves whatever they want to call themselves. I don't care. My parents might be upset that I'm not passing down the Jones lineage, but there are enough Joneses out there.
Yeah, well, and then the other alternative is one of my mentors back in Florida in radio, she kept her brand name on air. It's still to this day her maiden name, but legally, like, she changed it.
Right. I want to Dominic Barlow. I want to ask you something specific and non-spoilery about Red Dead Redemption 2. I like the core system. It's unusual and took me an hour or two to understand, but it reinforces the survival aspects quite well. I like to think of the core being a numeric value representing your maximum health and stamina, so when those values are low, they obviously run out more quickly. I don't think this really works when it comes to Deadeye. However, because it functions as a consumable resource rather than a passive stat. In my experience, this meant burning through the meter and then the core in no time flat, almost as if it were 1 meter, and then juggling 2 kinds of Deadeye restoration items for the entire game. There's like, I know there's herbs that you can, I was chugging Kentucky bourbon that whole game to up that Deadeye thing. Or Guarana rum, I think is the best stuff for that. While constantly swigging rum and tonics wasn't wildly out of character, it did seem like a step out of bounds for the kind of experience Rockstar was shooting for. What was your experience managing Deadeye like? Yeah, I'll agree with you that Deadeye saps pretty quickly. Like, that definitely runs out. It was alarming going into Red Dead Online and creating this new character and having that bar be very small because I'm just starting over. But yeah, it's interesting. I think it kind of shows, I mean, technically you could run out. It's just that you use Deadeye as a crutch and you're not like using stamina as a crutch or health as a crutch. And so that stuff's not running out, you could easily run your horse's stamina out, your horse's health if you're just constantly running off cliffs or getting it shot. And so I think it's easier to, I'm not sure if it depletes faster or if it's just the average gamer, the average player is more likely to like use Deadeye constantly because it's a really addictive thing to use and makes stuff a lot easier. And so I think, but I looked in the middle and saw that red eye all the time, like just my whole playthrough, probably the gameplay. If you look back at any given time, it's like, yeah, most of that's gone. So I don't know. I never really thought about that. And as having not done my own research, that's all I have to say. I don't know, but I'll think about that the more I play online. Nia Juarez. I've been watching the Easy Allies for about a year now, all thanks to my brother, who has seen your guys' content since game trailers. So major thanks and shout out to my broby. He has shown me the other YouTube pages, and while I enjoy them, I haven't been as compelled to check in as consistently as I do with your guys' content. They often were Let's Play channels or something similar of that sort. I realized what really drew me in was your guys' various commentary and conversations and the topics that you guys seem to be passionate about. Even when I don't necessarily agree, I crave conversation to understand different points of views, and that's exactly what you guys deliver on. Hey. Yeah. So this is me mostly wanting to say thanks for keeping conversations alive and healthy. Plus, I'm wondering if this is what you look for in content outside of Easy Allies, or what's the main principle that gives you fulfillment, enjoyment in other entertainment content. I don't know if I really have a steadfast rule.
A principle, yeah.
Because I love watching things with terrible people. Yeah, I just I watched the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and then I watched it with Amanda. And before we watched it, I popped it up and I turned to her and I was just like, just a heads up, the people in this movie are brutal. Like, this is like, to me, I think Buster Scruggs is ultimately about a lot of things, but it's about the value of human life. It's like how important it is it for you to enjoy your life? What do you choose to do with your life? How do you approach the concept of dying and other people dying around you? So it's like, it's interesting because I try to be a very jovial person. I try to be very welcoming and understanding and patient. And yet, like, I play horror games all the time. I'm doing terrible things. I'm playing Red Dead GTA and blowing people's heads off. And you're a lot, I think, more wholesome when it comes to your gaming selection. I mean, like Witcher, you're doing some evil things. But you play, like, racing games and sports stuff, Splatoon. Like.
Sure.
I was just gonna say, like, you were talking about shotgun
and GTA.
Yeah, you were talking about shotgun headshots in review, and I'm like, I've never gotten a shotgun headshot from you. How dare you? But yeah, so I don't like. I love horror. I love spooky stuff. So that to me would be the most in contrast to other things. But at the same time, I like, I'll watch a kid's show. I like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like, I'll watch R.I.P. Steven Hillenburg creating SpongeBob. Love SpongeBob. I love Batman. I love this dark stuff. So yeah, more headshots, Blood. If you can make that happen, appreciate it. Matt Bolenbach. I finally bought a PS4. Yay! Yay!
Nice.
I got one of the 199 1 terabyte slims with Spider-Man bundles. I'm loving the game so far, especially because my kids enjoy sitting with me while I play. They love when I get to stop crimes or save people. I love having the opportunity to share this with them, and honestly, that is what held me back from getting a PS4 for so long. When one thinks of popular PS4 games, not many kid or family-friendly titles come to mind. Do you have any suggestions of family-friendly PS4 games? I have Horizon Zero Dawn on the way, $10 deal from GameSpot proved impossible to pass up, but currently nothing else planned for that new piece of gaming hardware. My kids are no stranger to gaming. Between Switch, NES, and SNES classics, they've watched and replayed their fair share. While I'd love to dive into Red Dead, God of War, RE7, or Bloodborne, it's hard for me to commandeer the TV with such intense games when I have 4 little best friends who also share that same space. Any advice is appreciated, and thanks as always. Overcooked 2, definitely. Dragon Quest Builders, definitely.
Sure, yeah. Dragon Quest,
Minecraft,
11
of course.
probably.
On really any console. Yeah, Dragon Quest 11. Yeah. Tetris Effect. Moss. I mean, anything. If you're
Ratchet and Clank.
I know you just bought this thing, but if you're interested, yeah, Ratchet. The remake. Yeah, I mean, and just any sports stuff. Kids might like Madden. They might like basketball games. Might like some hockey. What? Yeah, Knack 2.
Yeah.
And just any of the Lego games. Lego DC. Super Villains just came out. Lego Incredibles came out this summer. So there's a lot of fun new Lego games this year. Rocket League. Great suggestions from chat.
Rocket League is
Ni no Kuni 2. Splatoon. But Kingdom Hearts, coming up next month. I can just love like a little kid turning behind and being like, Dad, what's going on? Like, I don't know. Enjoy it. James Kennedy. There's something I've been chewing on for a while, and I'm going to be chewing on this comment for the next 6 minutes. This is a beefy one. Occasionally, there's a game that will review well critically while not being as affectionately received by the fans. Sometimes the critics themselves will then turn on the game soon after. The perfect example of this is Final Fantasy XIII. It was a game that was heavily criticized by fans, though of course it still has its own dedicated fan base, and was largely a target for backhanded remarks in the critical community. I remember it often being heavily criticized in articles about Final Fantasy as a whole. I remember listening to the GT podcast, and it seemed like the panel had little else but scorn for the game, yet it received an 8.6 when it was reviewed. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that individuals review games, not the outlet itself. I am not implying that this is an inconsistency, but it is crazy how many other outlets seem to have a similar dynamic, positive review, but scorn for the game from the public-facing members of that outlet. Often even Final Fantasy think pieces have seemed to exist to specifically get a few digs in. So what's happening here? My theory is that people are chosen to review a giant property based on their own affinity for that giant franchise. Those critics have an expectation that the game will be great due to the hype cycle, and as they are playing the game in a vacuum, they're more likely to be a little too generous while scoring it. Ooh, a little too generous. Or is it that just a vocal minority that doesn't like the game? Or is it that it is just a vocal minority that doesn't like the game, but they are so loud that the legitimate fans in the critical community are silenced, leaving only the detractors to have their voices heard? Or is it just a crazy coincidence where the segment of people who would just happen to love that game in particular just so happen to be the ones that ended up playing it? What's your opinion on this phenomenon, Mr. Jones? You have that juicy insight that so few of us have, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Lastly, in your heart of hearts, do you believe that Final Fantasy XIII gets an 8.3 Metacritic score if the name of that game didn't have Final Fantasy in it? And what if it wasn't developed by Square?
Yeah, I think
answer.
This is one of those weird things where on its own, like an 8.6 or an 8.3 sounds great.
Yeah.
When you look at something like a Final Fantasy or a Zelda or a Mario or a Red Dead, even to a lot of those fans, like, it's only an 8.6.
Yeah, I give Kingdom Hearts 2 an 8.5, and fans let me have it.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's the expectation is way higher. So, like, even though that looks like a positive score, probably for that reviewer is like, that was a disappointment. But they were still able to see, whatever.
I think one of the other reasons too is if you're assigned to review a game, you're going to beat it. Like Ben would love to stop right now playing Fallout 76, but he can't. He's got to finish that game. He's got to play enough of it. And obviously, like we're saying with MMOs, like Huber didn't play all of Odyssey. I didn't play all of Red Dead.
He still has the option
to
not finish that game. So
he does, okay.
But you don't know the future right now.
Right. Yeah.
He made us decide.
We don't know how many options Ben has in general right now. But the point is that like Ben is committed as a reviewer to be the one that is most likely among us to play the most of that game. And then all the rest of us coming in with our own dumb opinions, and it's our responsibility to do the best job we can to help preface them so you understand my perspective, what I expected from it, how much of it I've played, kind of the worth, in your opinion, of my opinion, based on that information. And so I think sometimes when you see that phenomenon of like people in an outlet that are just like, man, I didn't really like it, and then the reviewer being like, yeah, but it's okay, because that reviewer beat it, that reviewer finished it, that reviewer understands that, yeah, the beginning of 13 is really linear, and yeah, the story is really confusing, and there's a lot of things to be frustrated about, some of the characters are weird, but like when you experience the whole thing and you've put in 40, 50 hours and you're like, okay, this is really a big, beautiful game. And there's like a lot of cool stuff going on here. And then then that person's in a weird position to then show up with the rest of the group and be like, hey, maybe you didn't know about this, or maybe you could understand this. I felt Ben was definitely in that position with Persona. Like Persona 5. It's amazing, but like I didn't have time to finish it. A lot of people didn't. And that must have been extremely frustrating. Like I'm kind of frustrated now, just like, Ian's just like, yeah, I'm getting into chapter 5 now in Red Dead. I'll finish it whenever. And I'm just like, what should I finish it? And so I think that's it. I think you just have people coming in with opinions that aren't as informed as the person who reviewed the game. Doesn't mean they're invalid. It just means they need to communicate where that opinion's coming from. So I just see that a lot where like I'll come back and be like, hey, I beat Spider-Man, and someone's like, cool, I just played it. The frame trap when we talked about Red Dead, Ben had just played it for like 4 hours, and he was not having a super great time because the beginning of that game is slow, and he was trying to hustle through it as quick as he could, so he's walking through the snow like, come on. And while I'm not saying I'm right and he's wrong or vice versa, it was just nice to have those differing opinions. And a lot of times, like, unless you have a really impressive opening in a game, like you're not just going to be like, oh my god, best game ever, like immediately. And if you are, again, take it with a grain of salt. So yeah, that's why I think there's a difference there. Morgan Mahala, what are your thoughts on modern video games that have the player set down the controller but continue the game? Examples include having to break out the pen and paper for complicated witness puzzles, almost all of Nintendo Labo, and the Assassin's Creed Black Flag's companion phone app, oh, I played that so much, that had you manage the fleet you capture in the campaign and net some serious rewards. Is this a type of content you want to see more of, more or less of? And do you have any ideas for future implementations of hands-off gameplay? Personally, I love it and I can't get enough. I love it too. And I'm not as obsessed with MMOs now as I used to be, but I've always loved the concept of like having an app that also works with the game, but instead of just like, oh, you can just control stats, or like, I'm assuming they still have it now, but like World of Warcraft added the auction house. You can have an app now where you can check the auction house from your phone. It's like not something that like I can do in game and now I can do on my phone. It's like you can only do this on your phone. So imagine playing like Rainbow Six Siege and there's like drones, and it's like that's a phone. That's it. Like you cannot control that thing in the game. That is a phone app that came out.
That
like I can
Division,
on my app
right?
I can
the
see the
Division
camera.
Was supposed to do that, and
yeah?
I think it eventually got scrapped.
I can imagine it got scrapped because it takes a lot of money to support apps, not only to develop them but then to support them after the fact with updates and stuff, and it's just not worth like investing in those experiences if only a small percentage of your audience is going to enjoy it. But I still think it's cool. Like I just think it's neat and be fun to have a different perspective on things, to have different consoles play games differently, and they can still play together. Like we're either cooperative or something.
Yeah. Or The Witness is a pretty different example because I don't think you necessarily have to put that controller down. I think that's just something, it's like an old dungeon crawler. It's like, you could get out the graph paper and map it through, or, if you've got the mind of a cab driver, you could just, it's like, okay, there's three hallways there.
Cab drivers, good at Witness, blood confirms. Yo, you played that Witness game? I loved it.
But it's...
I beat that game in 15 minutes. It was great.
Yeah, it's really just about how your mind tackles that kind of thing. And some people are just want a pen and paper to work it out.
You were there for this, but Goonies 2. I almost broke out that graph paper. Needed it. Christopher Peterson, what's your favorite flavor of Skittles? Strawberry. Used to be grape, now it's strawberry. Daniel Rona, I love musical. I'm assuming the red, whatever that is. I love musical theater and have been ruminating for a long while on how one would get the theatric vibe of a musical into a video game. There have been some big musical-ish moments in games like the opera in Final Fantasy VI, but I have no idea how one would be able to transcribe that experience into something as interactive as a video game, especially given the huge disparity in pacing of the two mediums. Have you ever given thought to combining these two great arts, and if so, what ideas have you had? I have. It was on a show. It exists. I think it was Cup of Jones. It's hard to, I don't do timestamps. It's hard to like go back through like old episodes and find stuff. But yeah, we talked about this, and I think one of the conclusions that I had that I thought would be cool is it stopped raining. Come on. I need more rain.
Oh, it had kind of stopped when I got here, but it's still gloomy and windy.
It was nice. It was pretty heavy this morning. It was nice waking up and having it rain, but like, come on. And the conclusion that I made was it would be awesome for a can't be Telltale anymore, but for somebody like, I know it's called Life is Strange, but what's the dev called?
Don't Nod?
Don't Nod. It'd be nice to have a company like Don't Nod make a Life is Strange, but it's a musical. So you're actually watching, or like more of like an Until Dawn, like something that's billed as a shorter experience. This is only 3 hours, like every time you play.
Yeah, Life is Strange Before the Storm had a theater thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It'd be neat if you could possibly do that like with existing properties, like something like Lin-Manuel or like Stephen Sondheim, or somebody could come in and like write additional songs for a work that they did and then give you the opportunity as a viewer to actually make decisions. You know, it's like, I want you to kill the Phantom of the Opera. Right? Like, that'd be fun. An interesting way to promote the medium. Yeah, Final Fantasy VI Opera, but it's the whole game. David Curtis, personal question following up of the most recent EZA podcast. How did you get labeled as the king of spoilers? It looked like it didn't sit well with you. I was totally joking on the podcast. Yeah, I go to work out with Sean, and he's like, ooh, rivalry between you and Ian. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, you got salty about the king of spoilers. And I was like, no, it's tough because like I went, I'm the king of spoilers in the podcast. I did that to show that I thought that was a silly title and whatever, like, that doesn't really get to me. I tend to review, like, almost all the games I review have a story in it. It's very rare that I'll review a puzzle game or a sports game or something. Like, it's always like Horizon or Spider-Man or, Red Dead, Just Cause, coming out next month. And so it's like, I always tend to have those games where like,
does Cause really have a story, Jones?
We'll see. We'll see next week. I wish it didn't, actually. I think the stories in all those games are kind of dumb. I wish they would just like make them super wacky. But like when Ben shows up, he's like, let me tell you about Fallout 76. And everyone's like, tell us, Ben. And he's like, I had this issue and this issue and this was really frustrating. And then like I show up and I'm like, well, the thing about Red Dead, it's like, shut up, Jones. And I'm like, meh. And it's like, I actually don't like, if you knew what I knew, you would know this is a very, 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 very small part of this game. And I think I mentioned, Ben got mad at me. The first and only thing I mentioned in Slack when I started playing Red Dead was that you can change your spurs.
Oh, right.
I wrote in Slack, I said, you can change your spurs, dude. Your spurs, like in caps. And Ben said, you're on thin ice, Jones. And it's like, for spurs? It's like, you see what I got to go through, but it's just, it's my personality combined with the types of games that I play. And so I just want to tell everybody. And I think that's, we just had the question before. It was like, man, you had to beat, Red Dead 6 days. That must have been really frustrating. The frustrating part was finishing it. And then I'm like, telling Amanda the ending, and she's like, that's nice, honey, but it's like I have no one else to talk to, and I can't really talk to other, because there's stuff in post game, and so it's like, I can't like call up a reviewer that I know reviewed the game and be like, yeah, that part, and they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, sorry, I spoiled that part for you, like all those fun things you can discover. The Champ. 2 questions, if you don't mind. One about Red Dead and the other about Sony. 1, did you ever find a disconnect between Red Dead's story and gameplay? Like when the gang says they can't attack someone because that someone has a big army and is too well guarded. Then a few minutes later, you and a couple of gang members wipe everyone out. In the next story cutscene, no one is usually injured. It took me out of those narrative moments sometimes. Yeah, I think that's just kind of the nature of open world games. Because there's all sorts of weird inconsistencies there, like when someone's like, we should do this right away, and then you don't do it for weeks. It's like, technically that's an inconsistency. And that's like a lot of the issue that a lot of people had with the ending of Red Dead 1, because it's like, it's hard to suggest like an insurmountable issue that you can face when I can just dead eye and shoot like 20 people in one shot. So yeah, it definitely is a leap in logic that you have to make sometimes with games. Do you think Sony is skipping all these public events just to finish their games? To my knowledge, demos, stage shows, etc. take time. Instead of pulling people off the main team to showcase a demo that may take 3 months to complete, just focus on the game and development to speed up the release date. Rockstar rarely shows off their games, and not many people complain. Plenty of people complain. And the final product, we've played Red Dead 2. Yeah, people, every time Rockstar releases a trailer, they're like, this isn't gameplay. Like, every time. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Sony. I think, my completely unfounded, unnecessary hot take on why Sony isn't doing their conventions is like, they don't need to. Like, they're rolling in it right now, and they know when Ghost of Tsushima comes out, it's going to sell like gangbusters. Like we're at such a buy-in period for this generation where like so many people own these consoles and like sales are just breaking records like nonstop that I think they're like, yeah, people are gonna play Last of Us 2. It's fine. Like we don't need, we can release trailers and that's okay. We can have a PS5 event and talk about maybe remastering it or something, but like we don't need tons of opportunities to get this game out in the public eye because it's, especially considering in our recent events, we've really put the spotlight just on these games. And just want dreams. That's all I want. Andy Gorgon. Every once in a while, I find myself playing a game that came out a few years ago and checking to see what the GT EZA crew thought of that game. However, sometimes that game happens to fall in the February-March 2016 timeframe, which means we never got a proper review from your crew. So with that in mind, was Far Cry Primal being reviewed at GT at the time of the shutdown? Do you recall what the reception of the game was at the time it was released among the EZA crew? I'm really getting into it, but it's one of those games that I just seem to immediately fall off the face of the planet after being released in February 2016. Yeah, I mean, the last game I reviewed Firewatch, and then we got shut down like right away. So I wasn't like in the process of reviewing something, and I probably would have been the one to review Primal.
Yeah, I remember.
Did I not review Primal? I guess
no,
I guess I wasn't sure what it was, and then by the time I was playing it a little bit, I was like, let me just finish this.
Yeah, I can't remember if anyone had started.
I loved it. I thought Primal was great.
But I do remember that we essentially got a stack of them. And so I have a copy that I haven't played, because pretty much everyone was able to take home a copy of Far Cry Primal. But
I played it and loved it, but it was not necessary. It's like, that's a game, like if you're really into Far Cry, if you're really into survival, but even for Far Cry fans, I think like there's no helicopters, there's no flying in that game. So like I can imagine people that had expectations from other Far Cries might be like, well, this is really bare bones, and that's the point.
It's weird because it feels like an easy game to forget about too.
Sure, but I love bow and arrows in any game, and so it's just like that game was right up my alley. Alan Canlick with our final question. A topic that has been fiercely debated among my peers is the correct way to use the word next. And I saw the Easy Allies Facebook account make the same gaffe, in my opinion, so I had to speak up. When you say, I'll see you next week, this is in reference to the Game Awards. It made me immediately think you were referring to November 29th, not December 6th. A quick Google search helped clarify what the EZA Facebook account meant, but the post still confused me. Next, to me, implies the most imminent occurrence of said date time, but it's often one of those kinds of words that can mean two things at the same time. It's an inaccurate turn of phrase and something that I've removed from my vocabulary when scheduling meetings with clients and partners because it's too important to get everyone on the same page. I'm curious what your position is, as you've done professional voice work and narration, and you are particularly skilled at communicating what you are trying to get across. Sorry if this is too nitpicky. I would love to hear your thoughts. I am here for grammar nitpicking. I am here for grammar nitpicking. I am an Oxford comma enthusiast, and I lose out every single time.
No, you don't.
Well, I don't.
That's standard here.
No, not in Easy Allies,
okay.
but it just in marketing. If you're making a poster for something, no one uses it. They just hate it so much, and I'm just like, it's just so funny. It's so ugly. Just like okay. It's like, all right, whatever. I think in this day and age, it doesn't hurt to be clear, to be under. This is exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah, to me, next means next. So if I was going to say next Friday, it's a week from Friday. This Friday is the day.
Yeah, I think
tomorrow.
that's the thing. I think
next Friday is in 8 days.
But what they're thinking is, because I think the post I made yesterday, yeah, and so they're thinking next Thursday, meaning today,
right?
Whereas I think like a lot of people, like we think of weeks as in chunks, right? So it's like, well, the current week we're on, that we would just say this Thursday, this Friday, this Saturday.
Yeah.
And then once we get to the next week, well, then next Friday.
I think just say the date. It's like an easy solution.
I also
one interesting change.
But I mean, it's just. I mean, it includes the link to the date,
right?
to your local time. It may not be Thursday where you are.
Right.
For a lot of people, it won't be. It will be Friday morning.
One interesting change that I made to Cup of Jones is I now say, like for this, the post is titled November 29th, 2018, and not 11/29/18, because some people are like, wait, what? They actually see those numbers differently. So, but that's it's an interesting thing, and I think I wouldn't be too concerned about the language as long as somewhere in the post it actually has the date, like the actual, and then you can use language and say but if you just say oh yeah, see you next whatever, and that's it in the post, like you're saying, there's a link to the actual date, then I can see that's something that we should improve. But love grammar nitpicks, love vocabulary nitpicks. There was a vocabulary category in the game when we put the game show.
Well, what is
that was
it?
A fascinating category. Going at Cal Bossman for vocabulary trivia.
The best one is bi-weekly.
Oh, bi-weekly is the worst.
Because there isn't an accepted, yes, this is what it means. It just means both. It
really shouldn't, but yeah.
It does. It can mean twice a week, or it can mean every other week.
Every other week, yeah.
And that's why we never reference that word in talking about Frame Trap.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Every other week. Takeaways. Consider sending fan mail to everyone in the tier. Do a charity stream for St. Jude, and one of our users cannot click the Patreon link on Twitch. Did we fix that? Is that somewhere we...
What's that?
We had a comment earlier that somebody said they can't click on the Patreon link on Twitch. Oh, no, we fixed... I'm sorry, that was just specifically for this episode. I thought that was a Twitch.tv issue. But that was because I'd restarted the stream and a bunch of people hadn't tuned in. Hopefully we didn't lose too many of you. But there we go. 2 hours and 16 minutes. It's not bad. We got 45 minutes to set up your stream.
For a double...
just more than enough time. For double questions. Yeah. Double the trouble. And for those of you that are wondering, if you're watching the archive of this, later, we're doing later cool stuff. But specifically, if you're watching this live in 43 minutes... Daniel Bloodworth will be here at the couch. I will help him kick off, and then I will bail immediately to go have a meeting with our real estate agent to hopefully get the train in the station for our new studio, and so you can join Blood for that. But that's why Blood is here. Daniel Bloodworth, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me in person. If you're new to Cup of Jones, you can find Blood in chat most days when I'm doing Cup of Jones. But there we go. There's the episode. It feels good. I'm trying to think if there's anything wrapped up. God, even when I'm solo, I can't get it under 2 hours and 20 minutes sometimes. So, what is Blood playing? What are you playing right now, Blood?
The Splatoon 2 Octo expansion.
Nice.
Yeah. So the way Blood Pack works is that there's a group of us. It's supposed to be like a book club kind of thing, and so we start with it's kind of like multi-tiered. We narrow our way in. So we start with picking a theme for the month, and I have a group of normal themes, and then once in a while I'll come up with something different. But what they picked, because we're getting to the end of the year, getting close to the awards, is the backlog buster, which is ridiculous. For my backlog, I haven't played hardly anything important this year.
That's a YouTube channel.
And so what I had Monster Hunter World on that poll. I had Dragon Quest on that poll. I had Red Dead on that poll. I had Spider-Man on that poll. They went with Splatoon 2 Octo expansion.
Yeah.
So pretty good. I jumped into some multiplayer last night to get my feet wet.
Nice. Wow.
And there were, Sheldon explained 70 new weapon sets to me since the last time I played. So
next group stream is Jackbox 5. And we will have a tournament. We're figuring that out Friday. We're having our meeting this week. And as far as Red Dead is concerned, I know there's a lot of people from our community that want to play Red Dead. I want to play Red Dead. I did get an Easy Allies posse, so we have that. When we ride through the fields of Red Dead, we will ride as Easy Allies. It's funny on the login screen. It says free roam, and then it says something else, and then the window next to that says lead Easy Allies. I'm like, I will, thank you. I'm trying to get better at it every day, but I got to finish up not Smash Bros. I got to finish up Pokemon the review, and then
I wish we were finishing up a Smash Brothers review. Jeez.
Yeah, that'd be great. Wouldn't that be nice to just done? And then Friday, we're having a big long meeting. Saturday, Sunday, like family and friends are just like eating up my weekend with all sorts of stuff that's happening. And I got to finish Trailer Jones. And then hopefully sometime next week, I'll be able to go through my Twitter DMs, Patreon messages, posts on Patreon, on the post that I put up for specifically our Red Dead posse that you can check on patreon.com/easyallies, the site you're at right now. And, then I will figure out everybody that we got, and then Huber's going to want to join as well. Hopefully Ian will join us for one of those live streams, and then I'll figure out a good time in the week to possibly plan a weekly that's obviously completely going to get disrupted over the holidays, but to plan a weekly thing that we can do in 2019 where we get together and help people with story missions or go rob a train or do fun, check out new modes that they add, because it's still just a beta, so I'm assuming they're going to be adding more stuff in January and February. Yeah. And then having that list and kind of being democratic about it, about like, we'll stream with these two people and then these two people, and we'll get back to those two original people, or maybe use them as alternates in case some people drop out. Never really done that. I mean, you do Blood Pact, but I've never really done like a consistent community focus. So we did a Disney Infinity.
Ben's done a lot with Monster Hunter.
Yeah, we did Disney Infinity, but like a lot of those episodes I did by myself, and so like I would really want to get better at having a community involvement thing. It's just frustrating because a lot of people are like, when? And I'm just super swamped for the next like 4 or 5 days. So I will get to that soon. I will have more information about that next week, and hopefully a ton more information if things happen on the studio search. Thank you for all of your patience, and thank you for your support. I think we're about 50K. We're at 49.9 something.
The past couple of days have been going like right on that line.
And
we're down at 2 podcast sponsors and 1 frame trap sponsor.
To be at that level, down 2 sponsors is a really great place to be.
It really is.
Tell your friends and shout from the rooftops. We have a couple sponsor slots open. Thank you for our new sponsors. And just thanks to everybody that is helping us in this time period. We, again, are... it's funny because we're looking at taxes and we've saved so much for the studio that was like, we got to spend some money. It's like, as far as like, the tax man is concerned, it's like, oh, you guys are rich. You're sitting on all this money. It's like, well, no, it's the budget for the studio. And so like, if we get the studio in the next couple weeks, like we might just like go Christmas shopping and buy a bunch of stuff that we technically don't move into the studio. And just also information about that process, because we're going to be figuring out, we're talking about more of that on Friday when we meet with the rest of the allies. And just with the holidays coming up and the move, like it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be a weird couple of weeks for Easy Allies in that transition process. And, all of you have been patient to the studio search. We're going to ask for just like a little more patience in that process, but it's going to have such an amazing payoff because we're going to be hopefully getting a new space. So stay tuned, and thank you, Bloodworth, for joining me. You make this so wonderful.
Thanks.
And now I'm going to leave you to your lonesome to play Splatoon. Stay tuned in just a little bit. Where's that mouse? There it is. Take care, everybody. Wait.